Melody, Commissioner Hanson, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody out to our Planning Commission this evening, December 7th, 2022. My name is Jason Hanson. I'm the current chair of the Planning Commission. It's nice to see all of you here. How many here is this your first time at a Planning Commission meeting? Oh, quite a few. How many have been here before? Told us how great we're doing. All right, about 10 of us. Okay, awesome. Yeah, who doesn't want to be here? No, I don't want to say that. Well, we welcome you as guests. I've thought about this meeting a lot in the last couple of days as we've read through our packets. We get packets ahead of time, and we have a chance to review everything that the staff has done. And I've thought a lot about this. And I want to just remind everybody that this is our Planning Commission meeting. And as a guest here at our meeting, we hope and ask that there will be some civility to this meeting. I know that sometimes these topics get contentious, and every time that happens and it affects me, I go home and I get upset at myself because I got upset at somebody else and they got upset at me, and it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Nobody feels good about it afterwards. So I just wanted to let you know, as guests in our meeting, I'd appreciate the civility. I'll definitely give you the respect. I think all of our commissioners would agree that we'll do that. So I know that tonight's topic is somewhat contentious. I've seen the keyboard warriors out there on social media on at least 3 different avenues that have kept me up at least 2 nights now thinking about this. And knowing what's in this project before. So we're gonna do the best we can to address some of the issues tonight and do the best we can as a planning commission. And we're all appointed members, we're not elected. It's important to understand that. And so in a minute, we'll talk a little bit about what our planning commission role is. So those of you that are here for the first time understand what that is. So there are no misguided feelings or expectations of what you might see tonight. The first item on our agenda, actually, the first thing we're gonna do this evening is we're gonna start with a prayer over our meeting, which we always do. Commissioner Shield will offer that, and then I'll have Commissioner Bullock lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll go from there.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful to be here this day as a community and as neighbors and associates. We're thankful for the opportunities that we have to plan and discuss opportunities for us as the community and as a city. We pray that we can be professional in our presentations. We pray that we can be professional and courteous to one another with our comments, that we'll be able to, as a planning commission, we will be courteous with one another and be quick to respond and be able to know how to respond. We pray that we can be good to one another, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, commissioners, and thank you, everybody. The first item on our agenda this evening is to approve the agenda as outlined. Commissioners, do you have anything on here that you'd like to discuss about possible move or addition to the agenda this evening? I personally would like to know if the representatives on item number 6A, that is for the Barker Minor, are they here right now? Okay. Commissioners, I wanted to discuss a possible move in making that, because of the length of the meeting, the potential length of this meeting, to have 6A move to the front where we could address that and not have them have to wait through this, unless you want to. Okay. Is there any reason why we don't do that?
As Commissioner Anders, I move that we make a motion, we move 6A to the first of the agenda.
This Shield, I second.
All right, we've got a first and a second to do that. Outside of that, is there any other issues on the agenda we should discuss this evening? Okay, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda as is with the addition of the moving of 6A.
So I'll Commissioner Anderson, I'll make the motion to approve the agenda, moving 6A to the start of the agenda.
Sheila, I second.
Got a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. 6A, we'll hear you first, not right this second, but we'll come to you in just a minute. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from November 16th, 2022. You've all received that in your packets. If there's anything that Melody needs to be made aware of at this time, please indicate. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to approve that, the minutes.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 16th, 2022 meeting.
It's Commissioner Tupou. I second that.
I got a first and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Minutes are approved. Those are on record. At this time is opportunity for each of the commissioners to declare any reason for an abstention or a conflict with any item that you have on the agenda. For financial reasons, we need to disclose if we have any, for anything that we're hearing. I do not have any this evening. Any commissioners? No? Okay.
This is Sheila. I do have my company. I'm not involved with the listing on Grapevine Crossing, but my company is. I don't have a financial gain or reward or anything from it. I don't feel like I need to abstain, but if you want me to, I will.
Perfect. Dad, any comments on that as the legal representation for us?
No, I would leave it up to Commissioner Shields' discretion as to his connections and his determination as to whether there's a conflict.
All right. As the chair, I welcome your.
The brokerage company that I work for. It's that's where I hang my license, but I'm not on that listing.
Do you guys see any reason for them, based on our experience in previous meetings and things like that? No?
No.
I welcome your comments, welcome your vote. Happy to have you in there. Thanks, Doug. Item number 6A. This is a final plat amendment. It's a public hearing and consideration and recommendation to the city council for a second amendment to the final plat of Barker Minor located approximately the northeast corner of Buena Vista Boulevard and Primavera Lane. The applicant is Evergreen, and I'll turn the time over to, I didn't introduce Eldon from staff to further report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Eldon, City Planner. The reason for this amendment is to split Lot 2B into two separate lots, 2B1 and 2B-2. Staff has reviewed the proposed amended final plat and finds it conforms to the zoning of this development. The subdivision also remains in compliance with the subdivision ordinance of the city. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the Barker Minor amended subdivision splitting Lot 2B into two lots based on the following original findings and subject to the following original conditions as seen in your report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor for any questions you have for staff.
Can you put that up on the screen?
I should say while Eldon's looking that up, Drew is typically our staff member that operates a lot of stuff. He could not be here tonight, so Eldon has stepped in, who's done this and perfectly capable of doing. I'm not sure how good your computer skills are. We'll see how fast they are, I should say. I haven't seen you there yet, but we'll see. So you're at the test. Eldon works for the city. We've got our legal representation from the city, Dad Siegmiller down here, and my personal security guard is right there. And we do have a city council member here, and it's in the attendance this evening. We have that all the time, so they can go back. All of our notes and all of this meeting is broadcast on YouTube. All of our notes and anything that is said or discussed in this meeting goes to city council for notes. They're the ones that ultimately vote on these projects. We have a responsibility where I wanted to take a second. Actually, I'll get back to that. Go ahead if you had a question. Here we go on the screen. You just wanted him to pull it up. The only question I have on this, Eldon, is traffic. Anytime we have a project, for the most part, traffic seems to be the number one thing. And this certainly could fall into that category with it being as close to the probably worst intersection I've seen in town right there. The whole idea of having another interchange coming off the freeway here, coming online in the next, call it year or two, is to try to alleviate that traffic. Is that right? Is that correct? Do we know when that's going to come online? Is there any update as far as if that's been approved?
I've got some update for you. So our power utility's working this week to relocate lines and facilities so that transmission, the substation can be also relocated. And so it's in the preliminary stages, but it'll take a while, and we'll see the underpass closed for 6 months or so before it ever even opens. But yeah, we're in the beginning phases of getting ready for the construction to get underway.
Okay, thanks. Commissioners, do you have any additional questions for staff preliminarily on this?
So the subject piece is highlighted, as you can see there.
So one of the things that in our meetings on certain items that is we open it up for a public hearing. And Thad, if I can put you on the spot for a minute, I wanted to, because you've been part of the Planning Commission, you've been part of City Council, you currently serve as, or have a position as our legal representation. Can you tell the community tonight what our role is as a Planning Commission, and then what the purpose of having a public hearing is and what it's intended to be used for?
Yes. So Utah legislature adopted a code called the Utah Municipal Code, and within it, it gives cities and towns and counties the opportunity to adopt zone designations and zoning. But that opportunity is connected to a requirement that any of those that choose to enact zoning at the local level also impanel a planning commission, so that the planning commission can review applications and make recommendations about land use to the city council. And so, if we go back to the real foundation, this planning commission exists because Washington City chose to have zone designations as allowed under the Utah Municipal Code. And we wanted to comply with all of those elements so that, the city's actions, approvals, and denials would have the color of Utah law. Within the Utah Municipal Code, there are certain land use steps that the state requires must be subject to a public hearing before a recommendation or decision is made. And so Washington City has chosen to comply with all of the state required public hearings. Our council has added public hearings for a few other type of matters in addition to state law, which is above and beyond the requirement, but the council saw fit to do that. Tonight's public hearing on a zone change or on the final plat for Barker, those are both public hearings that are required per city code and state law. And so we're holding them to comply with the legal requirement of the public having a chance to appear and speak to the body before a decision is made.
Thank you. So when I'm opening this item 6A up to a public hearing, what the public hearing in my mind is, in addition to what he said, is designed for those that would like to speak to this item. If they have a comment, a question, a suggestion, always give them the opportunity to tell the staff how great they're doing here, especially those of us sitting up on the stand. We don't hear that enough. Hint, hint. So we usually give people up to 3 minutes, and I don't anticipate, but possibly there's people here in this audience that would like to speak to this item. If you would like to, please come up and state your name for the record so we have it. We can pass that along to City Council as well. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to this item in the public comment section? Perfect. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time on item number 6A, and I'll turn the time back over to you, commissioners, for any questions that you have for either the developer or staff prior to a motion.
This is Commissioner Anderson. Eldon, I have a question for you. What's the current general plan for this area?
So you can see there on the map, it's split community commercial and regional commercial for the underlying general plan. Current zoning is C2. I'll pull that up as well.
So are they looking to split it right along that regional commercial and community commercial line?
No, their split is more
Oh.
over here by the cursor.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? I'll entertain a motion if not.
This is Commissioner Anderson. I'll make a motion to approve the amended final plat for the Barker Minor subdivision located approximately Buena Vista Boulevard and Primavera Lane with the 2 findings and 5 conditions outlined by staff and send it to City Council for consideration.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I second.
I have a first by Commissioner Anderson. I've got a second by Commissioner Bullock. Individual voting, Commissioner Tupou.
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Shield,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. What happens now is this motion passes from the Planning Commission. We send this to our City Council with our recommendation for approval that they followed the rules, regulations as they need to here in the city. Thank you very much for coming. 6A, appreciate it. We'll go back to, on our schedule to item number 4A. This is also a preliminary plat. This is a public hearing as well for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for Green Springs Village 1, Phase 1, the preliminary plat located approximately Washington Parkway, North Green Springs Drive. The applicant is GWC Capital. And Eldon, I'll turn the time over to you for staff report.
Thank you, commissioners. This particular subdivision is proposing 51 lots on an area covering 29.11 acres. The zoning designation at this location is planned community development. The surrounding zoning is planned community development to the north, east, and west, and administrative professional and planned unit development to the south, just south of the parkway. Staff discussed the name of the development with Alliance Consulting and learned that GWC Capital is in the process of renaming the planned community development to avoid confusion with the existing Green Springs development. Condition number 13 has been added to this report to address this concern. The hillside boundary extends down to and touches the proposed Colima roadway. The applicant submitted a hillside review application to amend the hillside boundary line. On November 29th, 2022, the Hillside Review Committee met and discussed the hillside proposal. The Hillside Committee noted one rolling hill southwest of the first water tank that should remain as protected land in the hillside boundary, and they sketched an updated boundary line encompassing the rolling hill. The Hillside Committee discussed options to amend the hillside boundary line. The Hillside Committee agreed the best path forward for this project is to note that the land on the revised hillside map should be classified as developable land, not needing further hillside review. The Hillside Committee recommended approval to allow the identified land in the revised map to be developable, not needing further hillside review. With the Hillside Committee's recommendation to allow this area to be developed, the proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Green Springs Village 1, Phase 1 subdivision on to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions as stated in your report. And I would just like to note condition number 13, which states prior to submitting the final plat application, the existing planned community development name, along with the name of this subdivision, shall be changed through the formal process of submitting the corresponding application to the Community Development Department. And I'll scroll down here. We can pull up the hillside revised map. this first map is the original proposed map. And you can see that that red arrow notes the rolling hill that the Hillside Committee pointed out. And then the new approved map has encompassed that rolling hill to be in compliance with the Hillside review. So they added Hillside here to be protected, to remain in the protected hillside zone. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have at this time.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor for any questions.
So this is a gated community? Is that, well, that's kind of what I looked,
There is proposed gates in this subdivision.
and is there only one entrance into this currently? There will be others, but is that going to be sufficient for the 56 lots?
Are you asking
I'm asking utilities or,
probably fire chief? Yeah.
Chief Evans, is there a chance that you're on the phone joining us tonight? Okay. Let's put that question aside. Maybe we could have somebody from this project come up at the end and address that, if that's okay. Or we can get an answer right now if someone wants to shout it out. Represents. One. Okay. Met with the chief? Okay. My only question is, this is part of, for those in the crowd that don't know, this is a part of a much larger project. This will be the first piece that's built. Eldon, do we know the timeline to have this entire project built out, if there is one?
So the entire PCD is slated to be 15, 20 years full build out.
Okay. All right.
Is there a reason, sorry, this is Commissioner Bullock, is there a reason that that little cul-de-sac isn't in this phase right there? Phase one of the village, phase one? It looks like it goes up and then it cuts off. Those last however many lots are going to be proposed in that area.
So that's, I believe, extended up into the hillside. So we wanted to make sure, I believe the developer applicant wanted to make sure that we had hillside clearance before we proceeded up too far.
Okay, but Hillside approved, or did they come down into that? So they stopped because they didn't have Hillside approval yet. Is that why?
Yes and no. Partially, probably that's developer preference. This is all they want to do encompass.
Yeah, I mean, if you can answer it.
You say your name for the record?
Yes, I'm Craig Coates with Alliance Consulting. So it's just a phasing aspect of the project. The first phase gets so far. Now, can you scroll to the hillside map? This first phase barely clipped the hillside boundary. So that when that hillside boundary was created 15, 20 years ago, it was a 10,000 view. And we went and did a more detailed study of what is actually applicable to be in the hillside. And so when we did the evaluation, we looked at this area to the southwest and said, hey, this area, over 56% of it didn't even meet hillside requirements. And the intent of the hillside is significant hillside boundaries that have geological shapes and look nice. And so we looked at those areas and said, hey, these are just some, it's a lot of contour in this area. So these have some little teeny areas that had rolling hills. And so that's why we asked to remove it from that area. But if you can point, Eldon, to where phase one ends, it's down farther right there. So it really was the road to the southwest that clipped it. Nothing else in phase one, but we thought we would address it now and get it taken care of. So, but I hope that answers.
Yeah, I was just curious why not just get it all in at once, but.
I wish we could build it all at once, but.
Well, yeah, just that, it looked like just that one cul-de-sac goes up there and then it's cut off of it.
So the next phase will have a road that loops up for a secondary access, and then the cul-de-sac's just above that. If you can see it just below the water tank there.
Oh, okay.
You see that?
Okay, that makes
Okay,
sense.
thanks. Any other questions? Right now?
So, time out.
Sorry.
So the second phase, they're still going to have to use that single entrance to get into the second phase, correct?
No, the second phase actually, you can't see it on here, but it'll loop back into the main road.
Oh, okay.
So you can see the road where it turns off. I wish I had a pointer for you, but Eldon, if you can point to go down a little to the left, right there. Nope, up. A little bit more. That intersection, that road will loop back up and connect back into the main road, the main loop road.
Around, you mean?
Yeah, and eventually there'll be a second access off of Buena Vista. Will tie back and loop through. So,
So the fire marshal's okay with you?
yeah, I talked to Chief Evans about it, and he was comfortable with that. There is a lot of there is a road that goes up to the water tank, which then cuts back down. So he was comfortable with it. So,
Thanks, Greg.
thanks.
Craig, I have a question for you. This is Commissioner Anderson. So I don't see a full grading plan here with all the elevations and so forth. Are these lots, I mean, especially where you have a lot of variation in the contour and so forth, are these lots being graded to elevation?
That's a great question. We're doing a little bit of both. So we're grading in all the roads, but the goal here is to not, since there is so much contour on the land, these are custom lots. We want the house to be built into the formation of the land and not so much, hey, here's a step here, step here, step here. So the roads are all being graded, and there's portions of the area that are being graded based on to make sure the drainage and everything flows properly, but we are not padlotting these subdivision.
Okay. From having been on the back end of that as a builder, that's kind of a disaster if you don't make sure people that are buying these lots know that. I mean, people buy the lots and they don't realize how much excavation goes into it before. You know, they buy a lot thinking that it's pad ready, and they realize that it's not a pad ready lot, and there's significant cost to it. Plus, trying to make sure every single lot flows one to the other. I mean, I've built in a lot of communities like this, and it can be a real hodgepodge if you're not careful.
Yeah, and the good thing is with this development, there is a DRC committee on every single house that has to review every single house and every single development. So they go through that process and look at those type of things. I mean, that's the benefit of having the bigger development and having those committees that are a part of that.
One other thing is, I mean, with the recent changes in how the building department is reviewing building permits now, I mean, this pushes the whole grading plan onto the builder before they can get a building permit, which again is a huge cost that, you know, if anyone in here were to buy a lot here and they call, you know, a builder to build a lot, they're not going to realize that I've got to go get a grading plan, a contour plan, you know, contour survey, all this stuff before I can even submit for a building permit and then do all that work. I mean, you got a huge deal. Now, if the person buying the lot is made aware of it, if their builder's made aware, that's fine, it can be done. But if you get a whole bunch of people buying lots and they get random builders doing it, I mean, you can really have kind of a
I understand what you're
disaster.
saying, and I think with the process that we have set up is that it is different, but we're trying to make this subdivision a different subdivision that has more of a custom feel to the land. And to do that, that's why we didn't want to go in and just cut off the hillsides and cut off that. We want them to incorporate their lot into the features of the land.
I get that, but it's also saved a ton of money too on the development side.
And
And I mean, I'm sure that's the main consideration here.
we're not saving that much. I know that on at least
Wow.
the grading side, there's still significant grading that's going on and happening with the site. So, but I understand what you're saying.
All right.
Anything else for now?
Yeah, we're good. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Before I open this up to the public hearing. All right, at this time, I'll open this up to the public hearing. If there's anybody here in the chamber that would like to speak to this particular item only, please come forward, state your name for the record, and we'll give you 3 of your best minutes. Come on forward.
Thank you, Chairman Hanson and Commissioners. I'm Tim Piper from Washington City, the Warm Springs subdivision, in essence, right across the road from Washington Parkway. If I could have a peek at Exhibit 4 of 8, if you could get that on the screen, and my question involves some of this. I have that as the preliminary, actually the Green Springs Master Project Plan of 2022 with the particular portion we're talking about is Village 1, Phase 1 of the Green Springs being highlighted on that. As you can see underneath the highlighting, the road structure, and then comparing the preliminary plat with that road structure, there are some significant differences between the Master Project Plan 2022 and the Phase 1 preliminary plat. And my first question would be, how does that affect the density of the housing and also the open space? How are they affected by the roadways being in a different area and with the lots laid out differently because of the roadways being different?
Who wants to take that one up here? Anybody, or should we make a note of it and come back?
I'll start as best as I can, Mr. Piper. The PCD approval that has already been approved on this through the council, and as it shows in the right-hand corner there of the exhibit, specifies specific allocations of the different densities and the different uses. The approval, however, allows that those densities be variable throughout the project so that the council didn't pin them down to one location on the front end.
I understand that.
But there is variability. And so on the first phase, it's hard to know what all their densities will be everywhere else. But what they do on the first phase, if approved, will be a permanent factor within the calculation of their total allowed densities of that type. And so I don't know that we can tell you exactly what that does for the density everywhere else, other than what you see is not a very dense project at this point, and that would then, if it gets approved, would be part of the permanent calculation of their density and what they can do in other phases.
Okay.
As to the roads, we might ask the applicant to speak to that before we give an answer from staff.
And also, I guess a question that goes along with this mapping, there's a major culvert in the area that we're speaking of, and it's a watershed area. And we have a major wash. The culvert goes underneath Washington Parkway and then out. And by previous maps that I have seen, being the 2017 map, the east, I'm not sure, that's at an angle, Washington Parkway is there, but the to the right side as I'm looking at the map area of Phase 1, the houses are encroaching further upon that wash in that watershed area than they were in 2017. So my question is, how is that, has drainage gone into, has the drainage issue been considered with housing being closer to the washes?
Absolutely. I know that our public works staff have worked really closely with the drainage scenario, both on the south side of the road there and the north side. There's been projects there to expand the capacity of the collection basin. And so, yeah, drainage is always an element that is subject to review by public works. And it's a constant one that developers gripe about how much review they have to be subjected to and comply with.
And I guess my concern then is based on these, and as mentioned by Chairman Hansen, this is the beginning of a 570-acre project. And my concern is if the density is already going up for Phase 1 and the open spaces are going down for Phase 1, how is that going to be affecting not only that phase, which is right across from where I live with my skin in the game, I guess to put it, but also the rest of the project. And then to me, it's, I don't know if it's the right direction to start off condensing things down further. I do appreciate those lots are medium density, I guess, size, and I appreciate the effort that's went into the project. I'm not anti-development by any means, but I do have concerns about the density and the open spaces that is disappearing. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Was it Tom or Tim? I'm sorry.
Tim.
Tim, sorry. Tim, thank you. Thad or Drew, Eldon, one of the questions, just for my own clarification on a piggyback of what he said, the way I understand this is that some flexibility and density is given in these phases, but the overall project density remains the same that was approved at City Council, correct? That will not change.
Correct, yeah. So Mr. Piper indicated that the density appears increased in phase one than was originally portrayed in the project plan that got approved. And the open space is also decreased. What that means though is density in other phases will have to come down
Come down.
and open space increase so that they reach their ultimate calculation. And if they were to do this every phase in a row, their last phase would probably have to be, 0 and all open space, right? Now that's an extreme calculation, but you get the point, right? And so yeah, they're going to have to balance this out. And if they don't, they end up with their best and highest lots on the hill where they can't build anything because it has to be open space or whatever. But they're not going to get that way. They recognize that balance has to happen.
Well, that's my concern. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Piper, one thing in answer to your question about drainage, this page right here on the plans in the packet, this shows all of their drainage, the light blue, and that has all the detention basins and where the drainage comes off the streets and so forth.
Right. My concern is that major culvert, the whole watershed goes into that.
It goes into that and then it dumps into the last one over there on the end.
Right.
But anyway.
You have retention ponds, and so that also assists. So thank you.
Anybody else like to speak to this item? For the developer, Craig, would you like to speak to the road design, or are you good with what's been said this evening?
Just like to address a couple things, because just so that he can understand, the major drainage is actually just to the east, and you can see the 72-inch culvert just on the very southeast corner. The wash comes from the east and bends around, but of course we've done the drainage through the development into the detention ponds as well, just for clarification. And then as far as the roads go, I think it was addressed properly. There's 2,200 units for this development as a whole, and it'll push and shove and really goes with the contour of the land and what makes sense to keep more open space than not. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Last call for anybody who would like to speak to this item. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on this item. I'll open the floor back up to you, commissioners, for any comments or questions before I'll entertain a motion. John is coming up to the podium. John works for the city. He's part of the roads, streets, and roads guy, so I call him. It's Public Works, that's it.
You can pick whatever I've been called many things. I've just been asked to put on for public record and stuff that Public Works is working with Alliance Consulting and stuff. We have some concerns with placement of, what the heck is the road? Colima Road and our existing distribution and tank lines that are along that roadway and stuff. They're currently sitting what would be in the front of some lots there and stuff. We're working with them to tweak the design and stuff. We have some concerns that if we lose one of those lines, how much erosion we might have in people's front yards. So I've been asked to make sure that we have that on the record, that we are working with them in that regard as we move forward into the construction plans.
Is it a concern that you think you can come to a resolution on?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. It's not something that's a major concern that we need to stop talking about this project right now.
No, it's a concern. We've already had meeting with Alliance and stuff, and we're working on some options and stuff, but we don't see it as something to hold up the project And these are normal things that we would work through on construction plans, but I was just asked to make sure we get it on the record.
Awesome. Thank you. Commissioners, it doesn't seem like there's additional questions or comments on this. I'll look for a motion. We can move this item along.
I just have a question, Elton. This is Sheil. Are the CCNRs concurrent with every phase, or does each phase have their own CCNRs and HOA?
So part of the legal process on final plat approval is to verify that if that project called for HOA and CCNRs, or if it was required of them, my office reviews to make sure that the HOA is legally existing, the CCNRs have been drafted and presented to the city, and that the plat also calls them out as reference on the final plat. And so, just to answer your question with a lot of words, yes, that's part of the legal approval of final plat. So it's more just a technical box we make sure is sufficiently checked before it gets signed off.
So at this juncture, do they, in their HOA or CCNRs, talk about minimum square footages and two-story homes, things like that?
So at preliminary plat, we don't look at CCNR or HOA, but if they want this to be vested as a final plat, they will need to have brought those into existence and presented them for legal to review.
I'll entertain a motion for A.
This is Commissioner Tupou. I recommend approval on agenda item 4A for preliminary plat approval on the Green Springs Village Phase 1 subdivision located at approximately Main Street and Washington Parkway, subject to the 2 findings and the 13 conditions in the staff report, and recommend pass it on to City Council.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Tupou. I have a second by Commissioner Bullock. Individual voting: Tupou,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Shield,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. This motion passes. We'll send this to City Council with our recommendation for approval. I look forward to seeing this project start, you guys. I know we've been talking this for at least 2 years now, right? Yeah. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. We're going to move to item number 5A. By show of hands, how many people in the chamber is here for 5A today? Just to hear it or talk about it? Okay. So the majority. 5A, this is a continuation of a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to City Council for a zone change request, Z-22-21, from open space to a planned unit development residential, which is often called a PUDR, located at approximately Grapevine Crossing and North Plata Circle. The applicant is Elevate Development, and I will turn the time over to Eldon for the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioners. This item was tabled at the October 19th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, with the Commissioners giving time for the applicant to make adjustments and changes to their proposed zone change request. The applicant has reduced the total number of units from the original 540 down to the proposed 396 units. Also, they have removed the apartment buildings along the eastern boundary and left that area for a future townhome development project that would come before the Planning Commission at a future date. The applicant is requesting approval of a zone change of approximately 33.96 acres in size. The property is located at approximately Grapevine Crossing and North Plata Circle. The requested change is from the current zoning of open space to a proposed plan unit development residential zoning designation, and they are utilizing the multi-family development standards in the zoning regulations. The proposed development is proposing 11 apartment buildings with totals of 100 56 one-bedroom units, 192 two-bedroom units, and 48 three-bedroom units. This would be a total of 396 dwelling units throughout the development project, equaling an 11.7 density unit per acre ratio. The exterior finishes, building layout, and overall design would be adequate. Also, the proposed block walls on the west boundary that are adjacent to the proposed commercial area are showing to be placed at the edge of the street cross-section. This wall must be moved into the residential site a minimum of 10 feet to allow for a landscape strip along the public utility easement between the wall and the street. The project is providing 911 stalls, parking stalls, which meets and exceeds the required parking for the project. The required parking number is 835 stalls. Staff has no issues with the provided parking. The issues staff has with the proposed project is the gap of time between the wish of getting this residential development started and not having any idea as to when the commercial development will take place. The city was supportive in the general plan amendment for this area, going from all community commercial and moving forward toward an option of mixed-use commercial and residential uses. The surrounding zoning to this proposed development is open space to the north and PCD to the east, west, and south. The allowed density is 13 to 16 dwelling units per acre. And again, keep in mind that they're coming in at 11.7. Staff does feel that the gap of time between the applicant's wish of getting the residential development started and not having any idea as to when the commercial development will take place is what puts the recommendation of neutral into play. The entire area of this project was originally general planned as commercial in nature. Staff even supported going to a mixed use of residential and commercial during the general plan amendment process, realizing that the entire 100 plus acres would be hard to fill with it all designated as commercial. But we also feel that no time assurance of commercial development is discomforting. Staff recommendation is one of neutral, leaving the Planning Commission to recommend either approval or denial of Z-22-21 for the proposed zone change from the current open space to the proposed plan unit development residential multifamily zoning designation, and that's on to the City Council. Staff has provided the following findings and following conditions in the report if needed. Real quickly, I'll just highlight here. You can see my cursor bouncing. They removed the homes from this location, and that is slated as future townhome area. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have at this time.
Eldon, was that the only thing that changed from our previous meeting? I know, actually, I shouldn't say, I am aware that the density went down some, but for the most part, that's the biggest factor that changed. Is that correct?
And the amenities as well. And I'll let the applicant speak to the specifics of that, but the amenities.
All right. The way that I've thought about this quite a bit the last at least 24 hours, the way I'm going to structure this public hearing for tonight, there's probably people here in the chamber that would like to comment on this item. We have received ahead of time comments that were submitted online. I'm just going to tell you the first name of the comments. If you're here, I want you to know that I don't see a need that you need to stand up and read your comment. We have it. We've received it. One by Donald, one by Barbara, Dale and Stacy, Fred and Mary Jo, John and Sue, Elon, John. Somebody handed out this little nice flyer that you all received, I'm sure. So we also have a copy of that. The way that I'd like to structure this meeting is we are going to, as guests of our Planning Commission, we encourage you to stick around, listen to what we have to say. we will be giving an opportunity to have an open public hearing where people will have a chance to stand up and speak. What I'd like to do first, though, as commissioners, is knowing what we know from our previous meeting, knowing what we know from our packets, knowing what we know from the public comments, knowing what we know from any other avenue that we've gathered information on this product, I'd like to discuss it amongst ourselves and have a chance to bring out some of the topics and items that we have concerns with. And then we'll look to hear from the developer, and then we'll look to open a public hearing to address some of the issues that we might not have addressed. So I'm doing it that way because in my tenure here, I've noticed in some of these projects that have a large number of people here in the chamber, if I open up to the public hearing first, 3 hours later, we're still in the public hearing. And I'd prefer not to do that because between the up here, we probably have some of the same concerns that you have. And I would rather discuss it and try to get it handled up here with those of us that are going to make a recommendation one way or the other, as opposed to hear it from 10,000 people in the audience. So no disrespect to any of you. I'm not trying to minimize your comments at all. We've heard them. We're familiar with them. It's not the first rodeo that any of us have been through with this stuff. So if we can go ahead as commissioners and let's start talking about some of the things that we have discussion points on, I'd like to do that. And the first thing that I want to put out there first for me is the road, Grapevine Crossing. And we've talked about that at the previous meeting. I want to make sure I understand with 100% confidence and clarity what's happening with Grapevine Crossing with relation to this development, whether it gets a thumbs up or a thumbs down from the Planning Commission. I'd like to know where that's at. I don't know, John, if that's, I don't know where John goes. If John comes up and talks about that, I just need to get a really clear handle on this because in my opinion, this project lives and dies by that road.
Yes, Grapevine Crossing North, it has been something that we've talked with developers from the beginning, that we need to, as a part of this development, we need to extend Grapevine Crossing North all the way back so that it connects with Sendera Hills in the back and stuff. Having this development go in with all of that traffic going back down through the existing Grapevine Crossing Road just isn't in anybody's best interest. It's not what our plan is for the area. So we have talked with them that this is what we would want to see as a part of the first phases of the development. I have heard that they are having discussions with adjoining property owners and stuff so that can begin its process. But yes, Grapevine Crossing North is something that we would definitely make as a condition of any approval of any of the developments up in that area.
Is the expectation that with the 5 lanes that are built there now, is the expectation that that 5 lane will continue? Is there any reason to believe it might shrink down or get bigger, or is it expected 5 lanes continuing?
No, our plan is that we would carry the 5 lanes all the way back until we would get to what will be the new Vineyard road that'll be coming down as part of the Solis Secondary Road. At that point, we'll neck it back down to meet the cross section of the existing Grapevine Crossing.
So it'll connect. The one coming from up above will connect to this one?
Yes.
Okay. And that's something that I can't be the only one bringing this up. I mean, this has to be something right for staff. Is it fair to say that this is a big issue for staff, which starts and it starts this project, doesn't it? I mean, because realistically, we can't put that many cars through a neighborhood.
No. I mean, Grapevine Crossing is most of those roads back in there are private. Grapevine Crossing is the major road in through there. That is public road. And no, we do not. That's not what the road was designed to be, an arterial road for all that traffic. So Grapevine Crossing North was intended to be the secondary major arterial for that area.
Can you indicate to us and everybody in here on the map which road you're talking about? Like the colored?
The pink one. The pink dash is Grapevine Crossing North, and then most of the blue dash that you see there is Grapevine Crossing South.
Okay. And so Grapevine Crossing North, the pink dashed line for this project, is it that whole thing would have to be completed as part of the project, correct? Or is part of it the responsibility of other developers or a joint development group? Or?
Yeah, we're asking that from where it is currently ended all the way back to and through this development be completed. Yes.
that it's completed?
Yes.
And when that's completed, so the main arterial traffic then goes through the commercial area, not back through the residential, correct?
Correct.
And so where it meets the roundabout there at Washington Parkway, I know before you had talked about how the roundabout is scheduled to come out and there's gonna be a street light there. Is that still correct?
Yeah, as part of our master transportation plan, that is slated as a proposed signal in the future. This type of development back there would probably precipitate that moving up the board and being as part of this project or shortly thereafter.
Would that be something that would happen? So that's something though that the city would put in, correct?
Yeah, we have it as a part of our transportation plan. Some projects we do partner with developers and stuff, but this is one that we have in our master transportation plan right now.
So can we suggest that this 5-lane road is completed before we go vertical with anything?
I would definitely make the condition that it is a part of the first phase of development.
This is Commissioner Tupou. What's to stop people from using the other road?
Well, nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing, no. It's a public road. They could definitely use it and go back down through that way, but with the north section built, it would definitely make it a lot easier for them to get out to the parkway and to anywhere else that they wanted to travel.
How large is this, Commissioner Anderson? How large is Grapevine South currently? How many lanes is that?
It's 3-lane.
Okay, so Grapevine North would be a 5-lane road going straight to the
Right.
main
and then-
intersection. Grapevine South winds through the community as a 3-lane road
Yeah, and with multiple
with
roundabouts.
multiple
through it.
roundabouts and
Yeah.
stuff. So the key would be before anything goes in, that Grapevine North get put in first, because then, it would greatly incentivize people to go on Grapevine North, just because it would be a hassle to go on Grapevine South.
Yes.
And it'd keep construction traffic off
They
of
keep
that.
construction traffic's not going to want to go through Grapevine South if that road is already built.
No, we wouldn't,
good.
we wouldn't want all that construction traffic going through there either. So we would be working to make that a part of that first phase. They could be building that as they're working back in there.
I visually saw, but I don't know how to put it into words as far as time to completion, the road coming off the hill. I can see that it's cut out and all that. Is there a time for completion on that road?
Not a specific date for completion. It is tied to them being able to go CO on the
Yeah.
first phases of Solus up there, but they're still 6 months or better up there trying to get everything buttoned up. So
If I remember right, that road had to be completed before they could go vertical up top, right? Do you guys remember that? That's right. There was some
I believe they
percentage.
had so
there's a
many-
percentage they could do.
I don't know that it had to be completed. It had to be accessible as a secondary access. And then they were limited on how much they could complete.
Okay, that's right. How
Yeah, how
units?
many occupants, until it had to be finished.
Okay. And okay.
yeah, as you said, it is under construction. They've got the base grading done. They'll start with utility installation here before too much longer.
Okay.
Commissioner Anderson again, and just for the audience as well, but a little bit of a rhetorical question, but you're a good person to answer it. So with all this, when we're adding this kind of, increased amount of residents and so forth, before they go vertical, when they get a building permit, they have to pay impact fees, which then, because a lot of people had expressed concerns with the impact that it has on schools and police force and fire department and roads and so forth. Can you tell people a little bit how that works? And
Yeah, as they proceed forward with their building permits and stuff, part of that process is the calculation of all their impact fees. So that's takes care of everything from electric, public works, parks, fire, police. All of them get a calculation in there for their impact fees to help them with the continued growth of the community. For most of the other departments, those impact fees are what helps us drive those major projects that we have put into our master plans. So So trails, parks, roads, those types
Sewer,
of things.
stormwater, yeah.
Take your pick.
And so the impact of adding future people, in this case, is paid for by the building permits, not real estate taxes, for example, correct? Or the general fund or whatever. It's paid for out of the impact fee fund.
Yeah, we garner a lot from the impact fees. Now, yes, you're going to general fund, you're going to reserve property tax from the development of that property and stuff. Those will go into general fund to help fund those entities. Sales tax, all those items come back in to help fund those different agencies in the general fund.
Thanks.
This is Commissioner Tupou. So if Grapevine North is built out, would the traffic lights go in simultaneously? Or how long before the traffic lights go in?
We would probably be working real quickly to have it in as the development went in and they went to CO. That's all, as those filled in, yes, that'd be enough traffic to warrant it. We know that it's coming. We would start to get it into the budget process, begin design.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, that roundabout will take a little bit more work to take out, but
Again, commissioners, I just wanted to, just for you all, this is an opportunity to answer all the road questions. I think we should beat the road to death until we get all the questions we have answered. I know I have, but you don't have others.
So the open space on this subdivision, are we taking into account the wash that you can't really use as open space for open space? Is that where they're coming up with the units per acre is counting the wash that they can't use? Can someone answer that for me?
Yeah, they designated the acreage.
Of the wash as open space?
I'll pull it up.
Well, that I kind of have a comment on that. This is Shill. Really, what is usable and what is not usable, and that's how all these numbers come in so glamorous. That yeah, we allow what 17 or 18 per acre. Is that right, or is that what it is?
13 to 16.
And it's coming into 11, but really, what's usable?
Right. That was
Right.
kind of my question is when you look at this, what is usable? Because that wash is so big.
Yep.
That's behind it. And is it still
Well,
land
it
that
is
they're
land
considering?
they own.
Is it land that is being able to be considered part of that for their units, which is not usable? So therefore they don't have the open space, I don't feel like, because they have a wash down there. Yeah, it's open space, but especially for something like this with kids, they're going to go down and play in it. That's not the best idea.
So they've identified parcel B-1, 33.96 acres. So all of that parcel B-1 is taken into that density calculation.
And that encompasses the wash.
Correct.
I'm going to shelf that question for just a second because we can definitely talk about it. Anything else on the road as commissioners that we'd like to discuss? I personally have a good feeling, understanding where it's at, that it is the completion of that road is something that is either being worked on or highly considered long before this is vertical. Are we in agreement there?
I think it has to be done before we go vertical.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I do too.
Absolutely. And it doesn't sound, from what my knowledge of this project is, it doesn't sound like that's a sticking point. And we'll find out later when we have a chance to talk to the developer. But as far as the road, that helps take care of a large number of the comments that we've seen and received and heard from previous meetings. I would believe that that's a big one. There's nothing we can do about the south part of the road where it's going through the neighborhood. We're going to have traffic. I've mentioned this in many meetings. I live in a subdivision that they built an entire subdivision behind me where the only road to that subdivision goes right past my house. So I absolutely understand what it's like to look at something that's coming and be built it's going to increase traffic around your home. I get it. I don't think there's anything we can do. Actually, I know there's nothing we can do about that in this particular situation. So the best that we can do as a commission, I feel, is get Grapevine Road what it needs to be. If anything is approved or sent to recommendation for city council for approval, that road needs to be completed. So I'm going to mark off road unless you have other comments amongst us to hammer that. Do we know what the speed limit on that road is going to be by any chance? 35? I don't know. I have no idea. I shouldn't guess.
Hope not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how to find that out. John? Yeah.
I believe that it is scheduled, because it's 1100 Commerce, then it comes across to Grapevine. I believe that it'll be scheduled to be 35 miles an hour.
I'm wondering if it's 25 now, because what is it in front of Black Bear Diner, right? I mean, it's got to be almost the
It's
equivalent on the other
30,
side.
it's 30 miles an hour when you, 30 or 35, I don't remember, when you come up to where,
35?
so.
35. Okay.
I think if we have it higher on Grapevine North and lower on Grapevine South, there would be more people willing to use the other road. Other than the other
I'm sure
obstacles.
Grapevine South is a 25-mile-an-hour road, isn't it?
No, it isn't. Is it 35 as well?
I'm starting to wonder what my speed limit is in front of my house now. All right. Okay, so the road, we're going to put that to rest as far as commissioners. And you certainly feel free to, if we have other questions that come up in this meeting, commissioners, bring that back up again. But we'll go. I want to go to the density because Pete brought that up. Let's address that issue. One of the questions I have, and Eldon, I don't know if this is for you or not, but she was talking about the point that was brought up by Pete here that a lot of this project, a decent amount of this project seems to have unusable space that we're allowing them to count towards density. Do we do that for other projects as well, or is that something that's different on this particular project?
It ebb and flows with project. Every project is unique in their own specific way, and we're allowed to make that determination.
Okay, so it varies. All right. Commissioners, what kind of density discussion points or questions do we need to bring out? It's obviously something that we saw in comments as well. It is worth noting that they did come down in density from when we first talked about it, at least for now. Yeah, at least for now. Is that something that
We're not going to know what the density is going to be for those townhomes. How many they're going to get in there for those? I mean, they just took them out. So, I mean,
yeah, what is it?
obviously it'll be lower because they're townhomes and they're not multi-story, but it's still not going to tell us how much more is going to be in there right now. So we don't know what that is.
What does the process look like, Eldon, if it was taken out, or the row of townhomes was taken out for this particular meeting and an outcome happens at city council and they turn around and want to come back and put back in whatever was there or whatever they want to put in there? What's the process they go through?
So the developer's identifying that area as future medium-high density, which will allow them to be 7 to 12 units. So it'd be right in the same range.
So if I was to take that and like add it back into this, I'm wondering if my eyes would look the
Be
same
right
way they
back where
did
we
the
were.
last time where we were last meeting is what I'm trying to avoid.
So if it's 7 to 12, we're back to what we took out before. Right?
But they are proposing it as future townhomes
Instead of apartment.
rather than the apartments.
Yeah.
Correct. Create a buffer from the existing single-family residential to the apartments.
Which is good.
What does the fire code allow for a big development like this and only one road in front of it?
I'm not sure on that.
Can we suggest maybe slowing it down a little bit and scrap the west side right now and do the east side and see if we can get some other commercial on the west side. I mean, I know that's what the city wants.
Well, back to the. I don't know. I don't. It looks like there's just a big parking lot over there to the. What is that? The north side of this?
Let's come back to that for a second.
Sorry, I was
No,
still on
where
that.
they were taking it out? Or where they
Oh,
took
no,
it out?
No, I mean right there. It's just a big parking lot. You got that one
Oh.
unit over here, and then it's. I mean, I guess it just looks like a lot of parking right there. I mean, it's good to have a lot of parking, but they're going to end up parking there and walking clear over to there. Right? Isn't that what it looks like? Or am I just overthinking that?
As far as the layouts at the top, we're going to use that as north. I know that's west. But,
So on the right-hand side of the screen.
oh, that one way down there.
So you got all that parking there and then not as much in front of those ones. So they're parked clear over here. And then they got
You can't cross the wash to get to the other ones with that parking. Is that what your question is?
There's a bridge.
This one out here.
Yeah.
Big,
well, it just looks like they took the majority of the parking and shoved it over there as well. I don't know if that's what they did, but that's how it appears to me, is that it's kind of shoved over. On the map, it's the north, but on the right-hand side of the screen. Is there
You can see this chart here. They've broken down the parking from
Okay,
west
sorry.
side and east side. So it looks like they show 180. Well, that's units.
216 on the east?
Well, and the parking's right below that. So underneath the units there is the parking on the east and the parking on the west. So,
216 on the east and
well, no, those are units right below that. The next line. So you'll see the east side has 537 stalls. The west side has 374 stalls. And so, yeah, your point there, Commissioner Bullock, is the parking's not necessarily balanced throughout by all the buildings.
the way I understood the reading, they're offering an additional, call it 76 parking spaces above what they're required to. Is that right, Eldon? Okay. So some of the information I saw out there is incorrect, factually incorrect, that there is sufficient parking. On top of that, there's 75 additional spaces. So
okay, so they're not all down on that other side. The additional parking is not all down there, but if there's 75 additional ones, it's just a bunch of it's down there.
with regards to this density that we're talking about, one of the, for the developer, just to keep this in mind, something I want to address when we have a chance to hear from them, and for staff, I don't know if there's a question, Eldon, if you want to answer, or if you want to speak to it, you can, but that is a concern that I have, is that what was taken out and what we're, from the previous meeting till now is just at a future meeting brought back to us, where I would not have wanted to see that gone through as a recommendation for approval if it was all here in front of me tonight. So splitting it into tonight and a meeting a year from now, I don't think settles the concern that I would have with regards to the density and the way that it looks. I do appreciate the approach of having townhomes as opposed to the apartment homes to kind of feather this in there, but I am a little bit concerned about taking it out, giving it the opportunity just to put it right back in, because it's not logical that we would leave a big blank space there. So I would expect some sort of future development there. And that's a concern that I have on just that particular piece. Any other density? So Anderson and Shield, I totally love you guys. One of the things I'd love to hear is your comments about any density, if you have it. Because I definitely I appreciate and value your opinions on all of this stuff, and I know we do as a commission. Do you guys have density questions or concerns that we can address before we move on? Because I don't want to miss it if you have something.
This is Commissioner Anderson. They've definitely reduced the density a lot from last time. I mean, it's 144 units less than last time we saw it.
Well,
Which is
Now,
for now,
that's
we don't
true.
know.
I know we
what's
don't
gonna
know how
come
much
back
is the
in
townhome,
underneath.
so that is a little bit misleading. Correct. And that leads me to, my main point, but But I mean, the density in theory has been reduced. We wanted it feathered in to try and, you know, blend the density, which with the proposed townhome area, that, I mean, that's what that is. That's feathered in, and that's good. So we don't have apartments right next to the single family. I mean, this piece right here, you know, is lower density. Obviously, it's, you know, around 11. But my bigger concern is that, and this has kind of been our precedent on the commission here, is that for PUD like this, I mean, this is a mixed use PUD, and we're only seeing a part of it. And it's just like the corner piece, you know, where they wanted to bring in the gas station in one phase and the car wash in another phase and the restaurants in the other phase. And we said, no, we want the whole entire thing. It's a similar thing. I think the bigger issue beyond all this is we need to see the whole entire plan. We need to see what the commercial is, what the townhomes are, what the apartments are as a whole, and then look at it. So if we're going to be bringing this many units in, that it can be brought in with commercial along with it. Because if you're going to be bringing this many residential,
stage them together.
yeah, because if you bring this many residential units in without commercial to support it, it doesn't work. You got to bring them in, you know, simultaneously. And so that's my biggest concern, is that it's not a complete package. It's the same as what we saw before, and we've got precedent where, you know, we're not accepting piecemeal PUDs. We've already, you know, been down that road, and we want both us and the city and the council and the public to see the whole piece of what is going in there. And we want it to be brought in a nice phased manner where we have the same amount of commercial brought in as residential. So that's my biggest concern. And just like you said, we don't know exactly what the full density is or what the full, you know, unit count is, because we don't have the full project here. So that's my biggest concern.
It sounds, Eldon, if I'm not mistaken, that sounds like a lot of what the concern the staff had, why they're neutral. So we want to see, you'd like to see some sort of a cohesive plan with the commercial that's coming in, as far as timing and things like that. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's extremely fair. That was the reason for our neutral recommendation, not being able to tie it to the commercial.
One of, man, I want to knock this one out so easy and fast, and I'm hoping, gosh, this comes up all the time, and the best I can do as the chair of the planning commission, try to educate as many people as we can. Everyone talks about water, and they're afraid that we're going to run out of water. And in the 4 years that I've been here, that seems to be the hottest topic around here, and I completely and totally understand why. I came from California. We probably stole half your water, so I apologize in advance for that. It's not my fault, obviously. But the way that I've been educated about water, and I guess I'll phrase it this way. We've been advised that right now there is not a crisis of water like we hear from the public frequently. That there are plans in place to improve our water situation, the best that, and there are many things that can be done that would vastly improve our water supply here. That I know I'm going to come to you in just a second, because I'd like you to speak a lot more eloquently than this than I am. But as far as the planning commission, when we hear complaints about or suggestions or nice recommendations about water, water is not an issue to us. It's been advised to us it's not an issue by experts. The Water Conservancy District and others have come to us and let us know it is not something that we need to be concerned about with our projects now. I'm going to look at you, Thad, and I'm going to ask you to clean that up a little bit so they'll understand our water situation.
So if Washington City was the water wholesaler, water would be an issue to us. We would have to be saying, does this project provide for more connections than we have source to supply for? In the Washington County area, there's a wholesale retail setup where the Washington County Water Conservancy District was put into place in the 80s. They built reservoirs. They collect a property tax. They collect impact fees related to the development of water source and water storage. And then they sell culinary water wholesale to the cities who then deliver residential water to connections. And so if we were both of those, which is the case in some areas of the world, we would, our legislative bodies that are approving land use questions would ask the question of staff, do we have sufficient water to wet the pipes of these proposed connections? We don't, because the entity that does the planning for the wetting of the pipes is the Water Conservancy District, not us. So our role is only land use related as far as approvals. People could get an approval here that they couldn't obtain a water connection for from the water district. And that's a real risk that that might happen someday in this area's future, is that land that had been approved for a certain land use cannot get approved for a water connection. That means they won't be able to build, they won't be able to occupy, they won't be able to use it for that use unless and until there is sufficient source of water to wet the pipe for that connection. Even within our county, some areas, let's use Vail or Enterprise, those areas are not served by the regional water supply agreement. So they don't get wholesale water from the water district. And so those towns both decide land use questions, and they also look and say, do we have enough water to wet these proposed connections? So even close to home, that's happening at the same body in some towns and cities. But St. George, Washington, Santa Clara, La Verrican, Hurricane, Tokerville, you know, the kind of metropolitan Washington County area is all a wholesale retail system. And so on the plats, if a plat gets through preliminary, comes back on final and gets approved, there's always a plat note number 7 that says Washington City operates a retail culinary water supply system. We have no excess water supplies for any of the lots depicted on the plat. And if the developer doesn't bring their own water to guarantee water to their lots, and if the Water Conservancy District doesn't have sufficient water to give connections to those lots, Washington City has no obligation to guarantee that they get to connect to our water system. And so water is a huge issue in the desert, always will be. But our land use process, because of how we're built within the urban area of the county, doesn't ask questions about the availability of water.
Can you give people an update, or at least a brief little bit about what the city's doing with regards to the reuse of water? New developments are required to pipe everything for the future reuse of water. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a lot underway. In fact, our mayor and city manager at the water district tonight, participating in meetings. Tonight alone, because there's a lot of things going on. There's a new reservoir we're trying to get approved, and we're going to participate on, and we'll be within the city's boundaries once it does get approved, right? But tonight, the mayor and the city manager at the water district, they're working on a new rate structure that requires all new built residential units to comply with an even more conservative water use than has been permitted previously. That would have some seasonality so that they would still have some water allowed to water in the summertime for plants and foliage, but it would go from a 0.89 standard, which is what it has been so far, to a 0.59 standard. So it'd pull 0.3 off of the total water usage of all new permits. And so they essentially, anything newly permitted would have 0.3 less available water than we've ever done before, right? So that's a big step. They're also working on an ordinance from the water district to apply a surcharge to those that overuse. And so a significant surcharge that's, enough to motivate folks to, keep their usage within those boundaries. And so there's a lot of steps that's going on. Some of it's just within your rate structure and how you even plan for how much water use that lot can have. There's a new reservoir. The reuse plant down in Bloomington there's a pipeline underway currently to connect that back up to our storage reservoirs so that reuse water can start to either be used to replace the use of culinary water in yard watering, or if approved by the state, to be mixed into the reservoirs and potentially be treated again for culinary. And so there's a lot underway.
All right, thanks. Well, that might have been all Chinese, but what we understand is not Chinese, that was good, but the way we've been advised in this process, not tonight, for a while now, is that water is not a problem for, it seems obvious, you know, people laugh like, of course water's a problem. Well, I agree. I'm a resident here too. And I look at it, I'm like, where's all the water going to come from? The way that I've been educated and understand that, even though I can't eloquently spit it back out, is that right now that's not a concern. So I do see a lot of comments about water. It has to do a lot of times with density. It comes about water. In fact, my first meeting here, I think a lady threw a water bottle at me. It was sitting right there. She threw it up here and she was like, where's all the water going to come from? And that was 5 years ago, and we still get it. So water is not something that I really plan on addressing. If one of you wants to stand up and talk about water, that's not something I'm interested in necessarily hearing, because there's not something that we're going to fix it tonight. There are things in place that are happening to try to conserve and reuse the water here in the county, which improves our water situation greatly. Right now we use it, it goes on down the line. I can't remember the number, what's even called, but when we can capture it and reuse it, it doubles or triples or whatever our water situation, whatever the number is, you would know that.
I did forget one more important one, which is the concept of will serve letters, which is a letter that would be issued by the water district that says, we've got sufficient water to guarantee that your lot can connect. And the nice thing about starting to do that is, in order to issue the first will serve letter, we also have to have enough knowledge of what our last will serve letter would be, when we would have our last one. So we've got to know enough about our water to say you have a right to connect, to also know when the next guy doesn't, right? And so the water district, we're advocating for the water district to implement that beginning next year as well. And we're also not allowing folks to come and buy those up and bank them on the front end. They would have to be fairly far down the process of land use approval, of planning for a development before they'd even be allowed to buy one of those near the end. And then those wouldn't last forever. They would have an expiry date of 18 months, which kind of tracks the expiry dates that we have on our land use approvals for plats. And so just one more way that regionally we're trying to manage water in a way that we know what's available. We aren't giving away more right to connect than we have water to wet the pipe, while we're also trying to work on a lot of projects to stretch and increase what water supply we do have.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to cross off water, commissioners, unless there's something else that you'd like to add or ask. I've got two more on my list, and then I would expect maybe that you'll have others. I don't expect them to fit into the box that I've written down, but one of the questions I saw somewhere, and one of the concerns I have in my reading, and I'm not an expert at reading a topographical map, but with regards to this wash, it looks like some of the elevations, like from that dog park there on the left down, seems enormous. Can somebody that better knows this stuff explain to me if we're okay with that as a city, or if that's a concern about the elevation changes in the around the wash there in these units, or the project itself? I don't know who it'd be, maybe nobody, but that's something I look at that and go, holy cow, the lines are pretty tight on our topographical chart that we have. The road guy knows about that? All right, John, let's do this.
He's more than a road guy.
Okay. Far less credit, John, sorry.
Well, at least you're reading the topo correct.
Well,
Tighter lines.
tighter lines is steeper and higher. That's all I remember.
You got it right. So yeah, as you can see, like coming down through the wash there, yeah, you've got a better slope. It's not identified on there what their slope actually is. But you know, as we get down there and towards Grapevine, yeah, it's got to steepen up so that we can get in underneath the roadway with the culvert, box culvert, whatever we're going to be putting in and stuff. You know, obviously we're going to be looking at like a 3-to-1 slope or something like that along there, just so that we can maintain whatever vegetation we have on there or anything like that. We're not going to end up with something where we're at it, 1-to-1.
So there's a standard that the city has that if it's not met, then the project doesn't move forward, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that's something you guys are well aware of addressing it as, okay.
Yep. As we get our CDs in and stuff, we look at all that and make all those changes.
Okay.
So
Thank you. You might want to sit closer. I don't know. We were going to have to keep coming you up here.
it's a great way to get my exercise for tonight.
The last thing I want to talk about, and I think there's some other comments maybe from the commissioners as well, is, oh yeah, I was supposed to ask everybody to silence their phones. Sorry, I forgot about that. I think that was the first thing on the menu. Yeah. Sorry, Melody, I forgot. Was the timing of, and this goes back to, Eldon, kind of what the city's concern is the timing of the commercial and the residential put together in a cohesive plan. I just want to throw it out there, commissioners. Do you guys have concerns about that? I kind of echo what the city has put in our packet. I haven't spoken to them about this yet, except the fact that if this is built and the commercial doesn't happen, then what? Having the road put in was a big part for me. The second part would be the commercial piece with regards to, we need to have the rooftops to have the commercial. I just want to see a cohesive plan here as opposed to not knowing. I guess that's a big part. We like to know and deal in certainty and facts. If we don't know, it kind of makes me a little leery. So I want to put that out there. If you guys have questions or concerns, I'm happy to hear them or discuss them, put them on the record at least, or to ask them. There's no way that was eloquent enough. You guys don't have any? All right. Maybe I'm,
Well, that's exactly what I was saying. I think it all needs to be one plan,
yeah.
and we need to bring commercial and residential in together, the same,
It's tough
Time.
because residential and commercial are two different things, where residential maybe is slowed down a little bit. Commercial is still a little bit active, but they will catch up with one another. And then residential will take off and commercial will be slower to take off. So it's hard to gauge it, but you still have to, I mean, commercial's not going to come without rooftops. And as soon as we get rooftops, then commercial's going to turn on. But they have different speeds. I'll just say that.
Okay.
So I don't know how else to explain it.
No, got it. Okay. Anything over here? Anything else that's what I had written down as far as the stuff that I've taken from comments, what I know of the project. I'm happy to answer and address anything else you guys have. Yeah. Okay. At this time, you guys good with anything else you want to discuss between us up here?
I think you covered a lot of things that, and I hope the audience understands that we understand the traffic, we understand the water, we understand a lot of the issues here, and we just don't want to keep repeating that. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So, onward and upward.
Thad or Eldon, is there anything that you guys want to add to this body right now as far as what we've talked about? Or are you good with where we're at before we move on? Good. Okay. At this time, I'm going to ask the developer, Elevate, whoever wanted to speak to this. It sounds like you guys wanted to speak to us a little bit this evening before the public comment section. Happy to have you come up. And once you put your name for the record, I want you to give me just a second once I find out who you are. Come on up.
I'm Austin Pritchett from Elevate Development.
Austin, what's your role with Elevate?
I'm a partner.
A partner. Let me ask you this. And I don't know if I'm going to get fired for this, but I'm happy to be. If you're one of the partners, how many partners are there?
4.
4. Are you happy with, word travels around with us. Are you happy with the way that you and your staff has conducted yourselves with our staff behind the scenes?
Yeah, initially. There were some.
What about now?
Right now?
Yeah, right now. What about up to this meeting? Are you happy with the way that you guys have conducted yourselves?
Myself, yeah. I would
You
say
are.
myself.
Would you
I've
say that
been
about your other partners as
very
well?
respectful. There's been some heated moments,
Okay.
but
One of the things that I moved here from San Diego, like I mentioned, and I've been here for 5 years. I have strength and I have a weakness, and it's I don't know anybody. I've never met you. I met you last meeting, actually. I'm going to take every opportunity I can to stick up for our staff. And some stuff got back to me about the way that some of your partners are treating our staff. And I want you to know personally, looking you right in the eye, it's not okay with me. So who am I? I'm just the chair of the Planning Commission. That's it. But I'm going to speak for some of the others. And if any of your partners want to call me or come and see me, I am happy to do it because it's not acceptable what I heard back.
I've always treated everybody with utmost respect.
Right.
I think Thad and everybody else on the city staff can back me up on that.
Okay.
So I can't control what other people do. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Awesome. I'd like you to take it back to them. And I know some are listening and
Yeah.
this is on YouTube and absolutely. I don't want to back down from it. I appreciate you being the way that you're suggesting and saying you are. That's awesome. That's how it should be. If you don't like what I'm doing, that's fine. We can discuss it. If I don't like what you're doing, that's fine. We can discuss it. But it sounds like that some of your partners don't share that. So I appreciate you sharing that. I expect the same tonight. I'll give you absolutely all the respect that you get and deserve. So let's do that. I just
Likewise.
want to start with that, but I definitely didn't want to go on and think that that would be okay. So please pass that along to your partners.
Yeah, no, I like to be in these spots because I keep a level head and I show respect and That's how I think it should go for everybody. So.
Awesome. So we've given you plenty to obviously think about or know and all this stuff, and you know what's going on behind the scenes with your company. I have never met you before other than last meeting. People say we're in the pocket of the developers. People say that I don't know you, right? I don't think anybody appears in your pocket. I don't think anybody knows you. I haven't made up my mind on your project. Maybe they have or haven't. I'm happy to listen to what you have. I want development there. I'm not trying to say, hey, I'm going to knock this down. So I'm going to give you every opportunity. I don't want you to think I'm a little upset about the others, but I want to give you every opportunity to address what you wanted to, and I'm happy to hear it, and I look forward to it, because it should be easier, right? We shouldn't have these people here upset about the project, so let's make it in your favor. Let's go for it. Let's jump in your boat and start rowing.
Let's do it.
All right.
Okay. Where do you want to start? You want to go in the same
Wherever
order
you
of
want.
your
I'm happy to
concerns?
listen to whatever you'd like to do. I'll give you the time to do it.
Awesome. Let's start with the road. So when we first bought this piece of property, we were told by the neighboring property owners, one of which is state trust lands, that they were having trouble with the former owners on getting the road through. They were so happy that we bought it that they would get that road through, and it hasn't come through yet. Obviously, it gets up to a certain point and it stops. But having talked to investors, managers, everyone under the sun on this project, absolutely nobody is expecting this project to go in without that north.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Makes
So that
sense.
is, so I just want to knock that out. That will come in. In addition to that, when our other road that you've seen coming down from the plateau comes down, that traffic will flow through south until north is done.
Right.
So by virtue of us getting this approved and getting our project in, we're actually lessening the traffic to the neighboring areas.
Yeah.
And there's even people from Ivory and other places over there that may swoop up and around and come out, right? So we are lessening the traffic to the existing stuff. So that should be very well alleviated, knocking that out first. The second thing that I think is most important is why we need to go 1A, 1B. And if you see on the agenda, A and B, B is the commercial zone. So we do want to do the commercial. If you look at, stay here on this version real quick. If you look at the open space from the roundabout to where ours is, clear at the top, Mr. Schill, sounds like you know a little bit about commercial retail. There's not a retailer under the sun that's going to come and pass all of that open space and put their stuff at the very end. It's just not how it works. We would love for it to work that way. And when we bought this property, we got some of the best people in the state at commercial retail. Sounds like they're in the same office as you, not closely associated, but really, really great guys, pounding the pavement, going to retailers. They said, look, we would love to be in this area. Until that front stuff's filled out, we can't come. If we see a road, if we see some housing being built, if we see other progress happening, then yeah, we can start signing up. But until then, we can't. So to come in with a full plat, saying here's what our buildings are going to look like before we know who the tenants are, that's just, it doesn't work like that. Like, we can get it and get it zoned and get it ready to go, get the progress going. If we get a project that's feasible, makes a little money, it makes it easier for us to pay for the infrastructure, right? We can't just build a road, build some empty boxes and pray. We've got to get a project that's rolling, that's showing progress, and then we can get everything in. Then the retailers get excited and it all happens. So we've put our best foot forward. We know the city really wants retail there. We want it to, and we've tried. And so we're doing the best next step to keep this project rolling, and that's getting the housing in first, but not to the dismay or to the pushing off of retail. If we had tenants that would sign up right now, we'd do it tomorrow, but it just is what it is. So, and you can see around about 500 yards of empty fields, our stuff. And so we're working with the neighboring property owners to try to help them actually fill theirs and work together. And it's been put off a little bit due to the holidays, but we're trying to work cohesively on the road, getting everything going there. So we've worked in really good faith to do that. So, but yeah, for us to keep our project rolling, keep putting in infrastructure, keep everything in this area cruising, we need something. And this is the best first step for us. So to alleviate those 2 points of why it's not simultaneous and the road situation. But if you want to go to the other plat map, then we can talk a little more on density and the other concerns you guys had. So I think you had brought up, is the wash included in the density? Our engineers did include that in the density. If you take the wash out, it's like 13.5. So it's still well within,
Still within then, right?
yeah.
Okay.
So it's not bad. And the
That-
wash has
but-
been,
But
go
that
ahead.
doesn't include the townhomes, the future townhomes that'll be part of this zone.
Oh, it does not include that land, no.
So then that jumps it back up higher.
No, because that'll be its own calculation on its, on its acreage.
Isn't this in the same?
It won't include,
be.
it does not include the townhome acreage in the density calculation.
Okay.
That'll be totally separate.
Can we clarify that just for a second for me? So is whatever's brought to us in the future would be its own calculation based on that piece of property, right?
That
It would have
alone.
nothing to do with
That's
this?
correct.
Oh, that's good. Correct.
Yep. And by doing it in 2 phases, I mean, if we get this done, we get the road in, everything's cruising, and then you guys don't like the next phase, I mean, you can always say no or lessen the density or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not like we're gonna say, surprise, here's this that you don't like. You've got to still approve it. And so we're just trying to go, what's the best first use for us to do a good enough start of this project that retailers will be interested, that we can pay for this infrastructure, and that we can really do a good project for the city, right? So that's where we're at.
Can I make a comment or do you want me to wait until the end?
No, we can comment whenever.
About what you just said. I'm wondering if the best start to your project has nothing to do with your project, has everything to do with the 500 yards you mentioned off the roundabout, right? Or whatever, however long it is. Like once that comes, it just seems like it's going to start filling in. Almost like we're starting at the back of the line and coming forward as opposed to the front of the line going backwards.
So for residential, not necessarily.
I mean,
Commercial retail, of course, yes. And so we are trying to work with the neighboring property owners and say, hey, let's put all our hats in the ring and do this cohesively, right? So that we're not trying to pull people to the back or to the front. We can maybe work together. And so we've had discussions with them. Nothing's solidified, but we're working in good faith, like I mentioned, to really make this project cohesive. So yeah, I totally agree with you. That's the way it's probably going to shake out.
All
So
right.
the one thing we do have that I think will be awesome for the city and for everybody is a little bike shop and a big bike park right at the entryway to all those bike trails that everybody loves. That's something that can go in now, right? Because it's got the demand there and the reason to be there. And that's an amenity for the apartments as well, even though it's off site, if you will. So
Let me ask a clarifying question because you asked this last time. Am I understanding correctly that there's a trail that's going to go under the freeway? Is it a bike trail? Is that correct?
it exists.
And it exists now, and that's what you're talking about having
Yeah,
a bike
and
trail.
so we're going to have a big pump track right there and a bike shop that will kind of feed into that.
Okay. All right.
So-
Thanks. Sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, and it'll be one of the amenities. It's not necessarily counted in the apartment's amenity, but it will be, right? It'll be advertised as part of the leasing and everything else. So
Okay.
that's something that's going to be really cool for the area. So what other questions do you have?
Well, back to this one real quick.
Yeah.
While we're talking about the wash and all that, do you understand our concern? Like, I know you guys are developers and you address it differently than like I just look at myself as the common man when I see that, and I'm like, wow, that's a 35-foot, whatever embankment or whatever it is. I mean, I would assume that your engineers are comfortable with it. Whether or not the city's
Yeah.
comfortable is a different story. But you're the developer. You look at that and you go, "Yep, that's the best I can do right here."
Yeah, I mean, it's all been engineered by Rosenberg, who's an awesome firm the city's worked with a lot. They do the FEMA stuff all the time,
Okay.
including putting stuff in. We were going to do amenities down in the wash, actually, with little entry points and stairs, but we got feedback that was not a good idea, so we took them out.
Yeah.
But it could have trails, and it could be an area that's used, obviously, when it's not a flood, but any other time.
This is Sheil. Can I just ask you, this is kind of a personal question, but as your group, do you have other developments that you long-term hold? Or is this your first one?
Yeah, so we're a newer group. We're about 18 months old. But yeah, we want to, we will hold and sell some, just kind of depending on where the market's at, right? So this one, we had a partner actually out of Florida that was wanting to build and hold. And so this one that's current plan.
So your other properties that you've been involved with, you've just developed, entitled, and flipped them?
Yeah, so we have all land right now that we're currently entitling. So like I said, 18 months hasn't been long enough to really get off the ground with anything, kind of working through the process. So, but yeah, we have the intention to hold a lot and sell some, just depending on which fits best at which time. Sometimes we have intention to hold and offers come in and hard to turn down, but
Get it? Yeah, I get it.
yeah.
Thanks.
What else do you guys have? Austin, thanks. You're hitting everything that I have written down here. Do you guys have questions? Or anything else that you want to say for that matter? You might have something.
No, I just think I want to apologize to the city staff if there's been heated moments from partners and things, and let you guys know that we are. I think the reason that some meetings have been heated is we're trying really hard. We would love to do retail off the bat. It's not how it's shaken out. We've tried. But yeah, we appreciate the patience. We appreciate you guys listening. And we think this is the best way to move the project forward as we work with neighbors and kind of fill this whole area out and make it a really great spot for the city. So
Okay, perfect.
we appreciate the time.
We'll have you come up here after the public comment if you want to say
Okay.
some other things, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no, that's
Perfect.
great. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin. Okay, so I'm going to open this up in a second to the public comment section of our meeting. You've seen a couple. I tried to address everything I could as far as what I saw personally and the other commissioners as well with regards to comments or things that we know to this project out in the community that have concerns. So I would, with all due respect, if you want to come up and hammer some of the things we talked about because you have a new point, that would be awesome. If you want to come up and say the same thing we said, not so awesome. So I'll let you choose. It's your time. This is going on record on Facebook, or not Facebook, on YouTube. I'm happy to hear what you have to say, but I don't want to be here until 10:30. So open this up. If you'd like to come and speak to something, please come on up, state your name for the record. If you can, please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Greg McCombs. I live in Sienna Hills. Some of the guys you kind of clarified about the water, you guys don't care, but we actually should care, and that should be considered for future developments. Our county's still relying on the Lake Powell pipeline that doesn't exist or won't exist. My neighbors and I, we hike up in that area where they're doing the proposed development. And one of the reasons we hike up is because during the spring and early summer, we see desert tortoise. Has any kind of environmental impact report been done for that area?
I'll make a note of the question and get an answer. I don't know that.
Okay. And also, medium density apartments have been built down on the south end of the Sienna Hills, and we're having a lot of problems with crime up the streets from that, and also with dog poop on the sidewalks and also on the trails, and that's occurred after the apartments were built. During the Ironman triathlon and also during the other events that occur, we're almost landlocked. There's one exit out of all of Sienna Hills, and it takes anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour on the Ironman both days of the event to get out of our development, and you're going to be bringing traffic down from up top, and then also add these apartments that can come through the south because they won't be able to go through the north way because of the current roundabout. I know that many of us purchased based on the original plat because of the open space in our areas, and these apartments are going to be an eyesore to people that bought homes with a view of the open space. I had a comment on Mr. Shield that came up. While you're not benefiting directly from the approval of this process, I think since you do work for a company that does, it just seems like, so there's no conflict of interest. The appearance of that, maybe it's just recuse yourself from the vote. I know that's going to go whichever way you guys are going to go, but that just is a weird one for me.
I'll say something about that. This isn't the project he has his companies that he works for is with. It's the upcoming one.
The other one.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the other one.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would recommend that the signal down where the roundabout's taken out be put in before any of the project, because that roundabout, we call it the circle of death, the people that live in this area, because there's always accidents in it now, and it's going to just overload that intersection. And then I talked about the 1 hour, and thank you guys for volunteering to be on the planning commission. Thank you.
Greg, nice job. That was some stuff we didn't talk about yet, so I can respect that. Thank you.
On the Ironman and those events, they're going to come. We want them to come. I would just suggest you volunteer and work them and stay home.
I do stay home and watch them. When we do have to go somewhere, we're stuck.
Who else would like to speak to this item? Please remember to state your name for the record.
Sue Moss, and I live in Sienna Hills. I do have a written comment, but one that you didn't address that we brought up is the sheer number of apartment complexes, I'm going to say within a mile radius of us, the ones on South Sandy Talus, 2 across Telegraph, 2 more that were built over on 1100 East. And then you want to add this one, and my question would be, why not some other place in Washington City? There aren't very many in Brio. As far as I know, if there are any out in Washington Fields, I don't know where they are. Coral Canyon doesn't have apartments. Why do they have to be in one very concentrated area?
Thank you.
That's it.
Chairman, just a minute. So, members of the public, I'll just ask you not to applaud either for or against. It slows down the meeting, but it also contributes to what the courts of Utah call public clamor. And so you guys decide what that means, but we won't allow it. If you choose to do it, we'll have to start removing you. So let's just talk and keep moving.
My name is Brandy Perry, and I live on Plata Circle. Plata Circle. I don't know if you can bring up that pink area again with the street where the road comes down. We live in that circle right by the street. Okay, and I know you guys talked earlier about Green Springs and how delicately you guys talked about the density there. And I don't know why Washington Parkway is an area for apartments, why we are different than Green Springs area. My backyard is gonna be that road, which I'm fine, and I applaud. I knew when I bought, we were gonna have retail, commercial, great. But another apartment complex is something we do not want. It's gonna bring more traffic, more nuisance, and just something that the city doesn't need or residents don't need. So I just wanted to say that, and I just also wanted to say I appreciate all that you guys do. I know it's hard
There's the first one. Right
with
there.
what
Hold
you
on.
do. I get it, but I want you to understand as a resident, when we buy, and we knew when we bought in that we were buying, that there was going to be commercial, which we embrace. We want the retail commercial. And I think that as a city is what you want too, rather than problems. And I've done property management for years, and I know what apartments do to the police force. It brings on a lot, and it's something we don't want in our beautiful city, guys. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw somebody in the back do this. They've been around. I like that. Yeah. In other cities I've been in, that's what they do. The public clamor is a real deal. It kind of works against you. So just know that, and we can talk about it some other time. But who else would like to speak to this item? Oh, man. Yeah, there we go.
Austin Anderson. I'm going to speak on the other side of what I think the most of the public's here for. I look at this development and I think what it comes down to is they don't want apartments, right? They don't want attainable housing. And I can tell you as a business owner and a resident here, one of the biggest needs we have is attainable housing. That's why we have all the apartments going in. I mean, you guys have seen the interest rates, you've seen the inflation. Where are our employees supposed to live? We can ask Officer Clunk here, ask him how many of his people on his force are living in $1 million home in Sienna Hills. 0. And we're gonna say, hey, we don't want Officer so-and-so living in attainable housing next to Sienna Hills. I'm glad you could sell your house in California, move here and buy a big house and then start shutting down apartments. That's crazy. It really is. The concern with the road, this is fixing the concerns with the traffic. Without this development, it don't happen. The gap of time that the staff has, it's a fair question, but the reality is you can't develop 120 acres at one time. It's just not feasible. we need the rooftops in to support the commercial. We need the street in. We can't go sell commercial without a street. I mean, Grapevine needs to happen. This developer came in, he fixed the problem with the wash. There was a big problem there from the 80s when the original owner went and changed the wash. This is fixing that. This fixed the road coming off of the hill for Cole West to tie that together. And now we're going to penalize him and say, hey, you know what, even though you're under the density, we don't want you to use the wash in your calculation. Every development in St. George and Washington County uses the wash as open space. So that's ridiculous. It really is. The crime, you can look up, the University of Little Rock did a study on crime with multifamily apartments. Maybe the officer could attest to it, but it does not add any more crime than the crime per capita that's in the suburbs. That's the facts. So to hear that, it's hypocrisy. It makes my blood boil. So I think this is an absolute perfect spot as a city planner. You want your high density next to an interstate and commercial. There's not a better spot for it in all of Washington County. You got a 5-lane road to run the traffic. It's nonsense not to put it in. I get nobody wants in their backyard. Nobody ever wants apartments in their backyard, but that's just the reality. My kids need a place. I dare say everybody in this room has lived in an apartment at some point in their life. And now they got their little piece of heaven. We don't want anybody else to live here. I mean, who's going to serve them the McDonald's? Who's going to enforce the traffic laws? Where are they going to live? I mean, this is providing that. So I think you need to take a real hard look at that. Thanks.
Thanks, Austin. Appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Kenzie Thomason, for the record. Okay, so I just wanted to mention, it's kind of on the same lines, but just wanted to touch on a few things. I do know that the St. George city, has a lot of the same issues come up that Washington City has. And I do know that they have chosen to kind of forefront more middle class type housing. Like, we don't want to become a community that is mansions and apartments. People that live here full time are really sick of the condos, the vacation homes, people coming in with no real stake or claim or care to this area. And we have to deal with the traffic and all this stuff, and they leave and go back to their homes. And I think that's really the main thing. Another thing, it doesn't need to be this lot of land. This gentleman was saying, where do people live? There's not enough apartments. There are 6 apartment complexes in this area. We already said that. We're done with it. There's plenty of apartments, and that's not even including the townhomes. We also have Ovation, which is a assisted living, all in this area. I have there's 3 apartment complexes just at the end of my street in this area. And it does bring a lot of riffraff. And to my knowledge, the Red Rock apartments that are low income that were built on that trust land, when we were told there wouldn't be anything built there, and it was approved, and those are there whether we like it or not, to my knowledge, more police activity happens in that area than any other area in Washington. So that is also false to my knowledge. So I just wanted to bring that forth, and I really hope that you guys will take this into consideration. It doesn't need to be an apartment complex. We would really appreciate commercial. These people have no stake in this community. They just want to make money. I appreciate that they want to develop the land, but can we please stop trampling on the people and please put in something that serves us? No more apartments, please. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenzie.
Stan Kennedy.
Stan, could you say that a little bit louder? Sorry.
Pardon?
Could you say that a little bit louder in the microphone? So
I'm sorry.
Some melody.
Stan Kennedy.
Thanks.
My wife and I both have retired. We bought some land here up in that area, and we had a house built by Ents, and we're on a fixed income now. We can't pick up and leave because things are coming in that weren't going to be there. They've brought in all these apartments and stuff. A lot of them, we didn't find out about it till they were already being built or getting ready to be built. We weren't told this. So why should we suffer? We're not going to get any money back out of it. It does bring down the value of your homes. I know that. Then also, That's all I have to say about that. But where the traffic circle is, I think that it needs to have the light there first. And also maybe instead of having the condos or whatever they end up putting in there, which I hope they don't, gets moved up to the top and have the commercial down towards the traffic circle and do it the other way around. Because that could be done too. Thank you.
Could you say that again? It didn't register to me. It went in one ear and I kind of got stuck on it.
On the traffic circle?
Yeah, yeah, as far as you want the future condos or townhouses
To be built up on the northern end.
by the commercial. Is that right? Or
The commercial brought down,
here. Here instead of here. Is that what you said? Is that what you mean?
well, I mean, at the top of the road. See how it loops around?
Yeah. Okay, same idea. Okay.
Okay, same thing.
I just want to make sure I understood what you're saying.
Okay, I hope I said it right. I don't know. I'm not used to public speaking. So.
Me neither. I mean, haven't you seen it?
You're good.
Okay, I think I understand, Stan. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Philip Fell. I'm relatively new to the area, so I don't really have an opinion for or against this project. Just I haven't been here enough to be educated enough, so I'm not going to impose my thoughts on it. I will echo a lot of what the comments are on the roundabout going in early. If we wait until CO, the construction traffic that's kind of your peak traffic time. So waiting to CO on a building is a little bit late to implement the traffic mitigation for that. So I think at groundbreaking would be a good time to also implement the light. And then as the construction ramps up, more construction traffic, the light's already in there. I do agree with Austin, his comments about we just can't have it both ways. Like I see all the Facebook posts. I work for a developer. I moved down here in the construction management industry. I also was the chair of the Nevada OHV Commission before I moved here. So I see both sides. I see the need to recreate. I see the need to develop for housing. Right now, housing costs are astronomical. Like I think middle class, our median housing in Washington County or Washington City is what, 550,000 right now about? That's really high. So even bringing that down to 300,000 is still high. Nobody again wants apartments, but how are we going to sell a single family home stuffed up like it's a highway behind commercial buildings also? So that's kind of what I got. I support what Austin was saying. But the roundabout, I do think, is a legitimate concern that you need to look at earlier in the project. Thanks.
Thanks, Phil. I saw one other on their way up here. There we go. Just by show of hands, is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak this item? Okay, a couple more. All right.
Hi, my name is Brad Langley. I live in Sienna Hills. Like you, I'm a transplant from the same area. So I've been around.
Everybody hates you too, huh?
Well, when they first asked me where I was from, I'd say I like to exercise my Fifth Amendment rights. Self-incrimination.
Yeah.
My concern is the property values, and you came from the Southern California region, are seriously affected by the more apartment buildings that go up. That's just a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the off-ramp northbound on the 15, actually southbound, getting off on Washington Parkway, that roundabout's right there. If you put a signal in there, getting off that freeway is going to be next to impossible because it's only 50 yards away. So if everyone's getting off work and turning right and there's a signal there, they're going to be sitting on that off ramp. Could be forever. Because I sit there now and there's no signal. And there's not, in other words, there's not enough leeway to go through. Also, I'm 65 years old and I went to Long Beach State and graduated. I was starting a family. I didn't tell my city they owed me affordable housing. That was my decision to make as a person. I had control of my life. If I thought that I couldn't live in that area, my family and I would have to think about what are we going to do to improve our life. I didn't tell where I lived, you owed me affordable housing. Basically, I made my decision. I didn't tell the city to do it for me. And that's what kind of bothers me. And that's probably just because I'm 65. and it was a long road. So yeah, that argument to me falls on deaf ears. I've had friends that graduated with me and Southern California was too expensive. They found another place and they were very happy. Went to Texas, they went to Idaho, they went back east. Not saying that that's what you should do, but you're not stuck. Everyone says, well, what am I going to do? They don't pay anything here. Find another place that pays you more. Sell yourself. So it just bothers me that that's a reason for people to think affordable housing. That, to me, in 65 years, I've never seen that pan out well, ever. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thank you. I saw two more hands. I'm not cutting it off. I'm just, if you'd like to speak, just kind of let me know and I'll make sure you're heard.
Name is Stuart Thomason. I live in the Sienna Hills community. A couple points I wanted to bring up. Just wanted to reiterate the negative impacts it'll have on our property values, having these extra apartments in there. We have seen a drastic increase in sirens in our neighborhood because of those apartments off Washington Parkway and Telegraph. But I'm a licensed civil engineer. I would highly recommend we propose that overpass on Washington Parkway and the roundabout be evaluated. Is my professional opinion that it's not designed or built to sustain the proposed growth that we're seeing in this area. That roundabout in my opinion, it is a terrible design. There's a lot of accidents, a couple that I have seen, but most importantly, that overpass. There's no lights, and there's a lot of potential for traffic and for more accidents. So just wanted to add that to the record. Thank you.
Thanks.
Rick Mickelson. I live in Sienna Hills. Why so many apartments in this area? That's a question to you guys.
Why for us? Let me just ask. I don't meant to answer it, but why us?
What's that?
Why do you want to ask us that particular question?
Because we've got apartments down at the bottom of the hill. We've got new apartments that have come down from Black Bear. Mm-hmm. We've got other apartments that are just opened up down here. Why more apartments up here?
So I'll answer that. If the main reason, so this body right here, we don't determine that. The reason there are apartments there is because it's general planned for that. And so everyone has asked that question, and I'm not saying I'm for or against apartments. I'm just saying the answer to the question is the reason there's so many apartments in this area is because that's how it's general planned.
Could you
That's
explain?
something that happens.
Could you explain what the general plan is, just so people
Why
understand?
why were they put in the general plan?
Because that's what city council passed. They decided years and years and years ago, before any of your homes were even there. They do a general plan to decide where the high density goes, where the medium density goes, where the low density goes, where the commercial goes. And as a city, they have to think way in the future and try to figure, okay, where are the best places to put these? Now, again, I'm not saying that it is or isn't the best place to put it. I'm just saying this is the answer to your question is it's been general planned that way since before any of you moved there. So
Haven't we got enough apartments there now?
But that's not the question you asked me. You asked why. The reason why is because that's how it's general planned.
But don't we have enough apartments here now?
That would be a question to ask of city council.
Well, that's why
we don't control that.
That's why I asked. I should just listen, but I just want to make a point. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. That's my whole
I appreciate that. I appreciate what you guys do. I really do. You guys are a volunteer group, and I appreciate what you do.
That's why I said that to you. And I think it might have, now looking at it, might have come out somewhat disrespectful. And I wasn't trying to be. My point was, it's that way planned long before most of us were here. And so why is that? That's something that city council needs to understand and hear. As long as you're alive, you can tell them, hey, we have too many apartments.
Totally agree with that.
When it's planned that way years ago, and there's even more that could come. So if somebody owns a piece of land and a piece of or in an area where that is a possibility that they can build, that's why we're seeing so many come to us.
You come in from that roundabout and you come into the subdivision, and on a weekend, that roundabout, you come off from Parkway and you come into our subdivision and you come into that other roundabout on a weekend, there is traffic galore going into the condominiums that are there and the new condominiums that are being built. I agree that that new road will alleviate some of that traffic, but yet the weekend traffic already is phenomenal. And it's because of the recreators that come down here, and I appreciate I used to be one of them. I appreciate that. But yet to put that many apartments up above us and above all of these condos, that just does not make sense. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Oh, hold on, Barbara. Can you come to the microphone, please? It's mainly for Melody can hear in the other room. She's in the other room taking notes.
Okay, Barbara Rhodes. I live in Sienna Hills. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I actually had two questions rather than a comment, and one of them might have been answered already. We had two speakers come up a couple of speakers ago that asked about our problem roundabout and the traffic light that's going to replace it. I guess I didn't understand, because when I think about the traffic coming in and feeding into that roundabout from the 15, what happens when that gets backed up? I can see it getting backed up through the neighborhood, and people are going to have to wait a couple of lights just to get through. But what happens when it backs up from the I-15? Wouldn't it just back up down the I-15 if it got to be a problem there? Anyway, I didn't quite understand how that would work. So that was one of the questions. The other one is, the big complex will have 156 one-bedrooms, 192 two-beds, and 48 three-beds. The question was about the one-beds. Is that a true one-bedroom apartment, or is that a studio apartment? And can you give me an idea of the approximate size of those one-bedrooms or studios? Thank you.
We'll get an answer. Thank you. They are that we know about. We're talking about other interchanges off the freeway that UDOT is currently working on. So anyway, anybody else? Going, gone. There's somebody that wants to. I feel it. No? Nobody? See? I can feel it. I just know. After 4 years, I know.
My name is Becky Sloan, and I live off of Grapevine South, as it's going to be called, in the Copperleaf subdivision. And we're mainly a subdivision of mostly retired people who walk that Grapevine South every day. For 5 years that I've lived here, we have put up with nothing but pure construction trucks. From 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night, they roll through there. Those cement trucks, the big dirt haulers, rock haulers. And I'm totally amazed that we haven't had a child or an elderly person killed due to the speed of the traffic. We have got to do something on Grapevine to slow that traffic down. And now you're going to add more and another entity up above us that will funnel down through there. So that's my concern, is we've lived with it for 5 years of nothing but pure construction, and it's not going to change, it doesn't look like. But do something to slow the traffic down before somebody gets killed on that road. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. Okay. Oh, there's two. I only felt one.
There was two.
Okay.
Sorry.
My name is Mike Forsey. I live in Sienna Hills also and operate a home business out of there. I retired from Utah County government 4 years ago, and I have attended more of these meetings, and both county and city, than I would like to count. My wife is home laughing at me right now because I am here speaking. And I spent the last month watching past things and even attended some meetings that just to see the interaction of this commission.
I saw you attend one, and I was wondering who you are. Now I know who you are.
I know. I was looking on to see what you guys were like. I wanted to know the cohesiveness. That was done for a reason. I don't have a lot to say other than a couple of points that have come up. Number one, I appreciate the staff, the paid staff that works here. They've done a lot. Being able to go back on some of the YouTube things and see the interaction with the at-will employees, if you will, you're doing good. The thoughts that you're brought up within this meeting are everything I have here, other than I have the detail. I can tell you what it's going to be cost or per 1,000 people for law enforcement, what NFPA is going to require and what our insurance does when we put the people in here for fire because of the insurance rates. I'm not gonna really go into that. The two things that I want to cover, number one, last time the developer stood up here and said house prices go up when development like this come in. And I thought he was bat crazy. I went home and I have to apologize. University of Utah themselves, for anybody that's a UU fan, and a lot of other places, our housing will go up in price because of density. Law enforcement calls for public service go up because of density. When you put something in, if you have 1 in 10 people that call 911, that's 2 in 20. It goes up. The more people you put into an area, that's when the calls of service are starting to go up. I do somewhat disagree that the impact fees cover all of that. The good thing is with sales tax that comes in with businesses, that's the good part. That comes into the community. TRT and RTR money that comes into the counties from the different types of things that go back into the community come in from those. They don't come in from housing that is long-term housing. They do not come in that way. So there will be an impact when that comes to the property owners. Yes, it's a property owner that owns the building, but still that's going to affect us on the bottom end of that. You guys have done a great job. I applaud you. But there were some people on my street that I promised I'd get up and speak, and I had a whole bunch of pages to speak, but not wanting to go over what you have said as you requested, I'll let that go. Thank you.
Mike, 1,000 points for doing your homework. You said something right there that I hope everybody heard about property values. Because we hear the contrary all the time, and we know the truth. We know the factual evidence, so I appreciate you bringing that up. Anybody else? I only felt one. We got two. All right, this will be the last one. We'll go from there. I'm expecting really good, big things here. I'm going to get a brand new page just for you.
Yeah, I'm sure. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Sharice Harris, and I live in Sienna Hills as well. My concern is with safety and with crime. And that does come with apartments. And like the developer said, is, you know, they build it and they do it and then they sell it. So then they're gone, they wash their hands. It's us people that live there that have to deal with all the apartments and the crime that does come in, because it does. As far as knowing that there would be apartments there, that's not true. We were told it was all commercial. And like other people told you, we're all okay with commercial. For one, I do know that actually commercial is actually what pays our law enforcement as well. So when you do have high density and all that stuff, it's the commercial that does pay our law enforcement's stuff. So we do need commercial. That is very, very important. Also, developers, people, even police officers, they can't control people in their choices. People have their own choices. They can choose to go down other roads. On Sandy Talus, we get people all the time coming down our road because they don't want to go down Grapevine Crossing. They want to come down Sandy Talus, and they go quite fast down Sandy Talus. And we've got a lot of kids that live on that, and that is a huge concern. When there's Ironman, we love Ironman. We support them. We volunteer. There's only one exit for us to get out. When there's more people, and I'm sure that will change, and I'm sure that they're going to look at that, but that kind of felt like a little diss on us as far as, just volunteer, which we do. We get out there, we clap, we volunteer. But we are concerned about being able to get in and out of our development, and that is a huge concern. So safety, crime, that's my biggest issue, and I want that to be on the record. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and I am going to open the floor up back to the commissioners for our discussion between us. But I do want to have the developer note. We'd like to know if there was an environmental report done. We'd like to know.
Chairman, can I take that one and then one other issue?
Yeah.
Eldon, will you go back to the map that showed the overhead of the interstate? I wanted to talk and just zoom into that, the interstate, the interchange right there. So one of the things the city still doesn't have control over is how the interchanges are built and planned. These are built subject to specifications from UDOT. You'll notice that they spread the ramps out. The purpose for that is to create a lot of space in between those ramp intersections for the very reason that many folks mentioned is there's a chance of stacking. The other thing is where the roundabout sits, that also is only allowed so close per UDOT spec. And so it's already located within the spec of what UDOT would allow an intersection to be. Is it possible that traffic can back up through those places? Of course, but it's located per UDOT spec. And then to the north, you'll notice that a similar thing, UDOT does not let the city allow accesses too close to those ramps. And so it's built to UDOT spec. Does that solve every problem or every potential traffic incident? No, there's always a chance that traffic happens there. But I just wanted to point that out, that the interchange is developed by UDOT to their spec and the way they develop it. And this one is a fairly modern interchange. And so they develop it to try to avoid those things and keep intersections away from those ramps. As to the tortoises, way back in the 80s, Washington County entered what's called a take permit that's been renewed a couple of times that establishes an impact fee that pays for the acquisition and management of a tortoise reserve habitat. Together with that take permit, the Fish and Wildlife Service and the government agreed that private lands outside of that within the county would not each require an environmental study for tortoises or endangered species. And so for that reason, the city doesn't require that on development. The developers will pay an impact fee to the habitat if they were to get approved and build. They would be paying a fee that goes to the habitat that'll either increase the habitat, manage it, maintain it, so that tortoises can be preserved in that location.
I didn't know that. Learned it. Nice.
Yeah, that's how we do our part to preserve there's tortoises are the popular endangered species, but there's others in there as well as plants that are also being protected within that reserve.
This is for Austin. 1 bedroom or studio, whenever we have you back up here, if you could answer that one. And then for the city, Eldon, I feel like I know the answer to this, but I don't know the answer to this. It's my understanding some of the comments were made that is correct, that, or if I'm not mistaken, it's correct that this was slated to be all commercial. And then it's changed to where, I want to speak out of turn, but does the city feel that that's too much commercial at that spot? Sorry? Right, but when we change it to that, is that because we were concerned of too much commercial?
Correct. Yes, that's the reason behind why our neutral recommendation. We feel we're taking away too much of that designated commercial.
How many people would be here tonight if that was a commercial development coming in? All right.
So yeah, it had originally, when it got planned, it was planned all commercial across there, the freeway frontage, the proximity, that's what it was planned from the councils of a decade or so ago. All of the Sienna Hills from the interstate down to Telegraph was Sitla land that was subject to a big Sienna Hills master plan. And yeah, that was always commercial. Fairly recently, the council allowed it to come in as a mixed use. And so it has that designation in just the small area there. Most of it is still all commercial. And it is accurate that the city views itself as a city with limited commercial areas and protective of those.
Okay, thank you. Well, commissioners, I'm going to open the floor up for any discussion amongst ourselves. We can all, if you would like to have Austin come up, at some point I'll have him come up, but I've done too much talking. I'd like to hear from the rest of you where you're at. What do you think?
This is Sheil. I don't mind the project. We have to have rooftops to bring in commercial. We all want commercial. We want to go for a walk and get that coffee rather than just go for a walk. They're coming, but we have to have rooftops to be able to pay for that. I think they can do some work on the design of all these buildings that they have so that it doesn't look like a project, so that it looks like someplace where you want to live and still have that number of residents. So I do think the road has to be completed, but I think they can make it more attractive for people that want to come and live there for more than 3 months. So.
Anything you guys want to add?
Commissioner Tupou, we make other projects bring in the full plan so that we can see what they're doing. And I think we should just be consistent. I mean, we're not telling them to fill the commercial right away. We want to know what they're going to put in, what their plan is. And isn't there enough rooftops there to support commercial right now?
Is there a way to know that, like a
Even with all of
statistic
those
that the city
apartment
has?
buildings?
Well, the commercial that exists is thriving. That's what we know right now is the commercial that has been built in that area is gangbusters, the busiest Maverick in the state, the second busiest Black Bear.
Really is?
Yeah, the hotels are fully occupied. And so we know that what has been built in that area is thriving.
It's coming.
We also know that realtors and developers tell us you need more rooftops for commercial. But yeah, we know that what's been built is not dying. It's not struggling. What exists is very, very busy there.
Pete, anything you'd like to add? All right. Anderson, anything?
So I mean, it was suggested that we may not know what we're doing as far as commercial development. I take issue with that. And I understand that you got a project on the very end, and you got to see what else is there. But also, when we're talking about doing a PUD in this instance is where we have all the projects together. We see what it is. We're not requiring that all of the commercial is designed. We're not requiring a design, in there. What we're talking about is what's the layout, what's the type of stuff that you guys are thinking of, what's the use. That's what we're talking about. I'm not saying you have to design every single building and this one's going to look like this. And it's not at this stage, but we need to see the whole project. We need to see, what's the layout of the townhomes, where, how many, what's the density, what's the layout of the commercial, what's it look like. And with that, we need to have more of a commitment as far as not us as the planning commission or the city staff or anybody saying, this is how you have to phase anything, this is how you have to build it. But we need more of a conversation from the developer as to what works, for you, not just an open-ended. I mean, you said we can't build, a bunch of boxes and then pray. Well, likewise, we can't build the entire complex and then say, well, we'll pray about it and we'll see what's going to happen with commercial. We need to know what's the plan. I think that's the disconnect, is that this is a mixed use PUD area, and yet we've got, you know, 3 separate, you know, potential PUDs here. It needs to be one PUD. We need to see what we have, so that way everyone, including the public, can see what it is. I mean, one of the biggest things that makes the public upset is when expectations are different than what they are in reality. Right? I mean, people constantly, you know, come up here and say, this is not what I thought was going to be in my backyard. And you guys aren't the first people that say that. I mean, everybody says that, every single project. And I know everybody says, if it was commercial, nobody would be here. Maybe not you guys, but I beg to differ. Every single project, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, there's a whole crowd here and they all say the same thing. I didn't know this was going to be in my backyard. So everybody says that about every single project. And the fact is that if, you know, if people buy homes and the realtors don't let them know what a general plan is and what could be there, that's not the fault of the city. The information is there. It is unfortunate, but I bring that back now to the developer, that's why a full PUD is helpful, because then everybody can see what actually is going on, what's proposed, where are the buildings, what's the use, what's the density. So at least everyone has an idea what's going in, rather than being piecemeal here or there. So that's my biggest thing is, you know, and you don't have to build everything right away, but we need to see the plan. We need to know what's going in, and we need to know from the developer, what is the plan? You know, what do you think will work? Because it can't just be an open-ended, well, we don't know. We'll just build a bunch of apartments and see. It's got to be, and that's what a PUD is it's a plan. Right? It's a planned unit development. We need to see what the plan is. So that's my biggest beef with that. The road, obviously, I mean, the developer has said that they're you know, fine with putting the road in, and that's great. It would be great if we could have the street light in, but that's also a city thing, you know, and so that's something that Public Works has a process of how that goes in. But those street lights, they don't come without development either. That's how those things, you know, come in. So.
I agree with Commissioner Anderson that it'd be nice to see how it all goes. I'm not necessarily opposed to the apartments. I'd probably rather see them tucked up towards the north end of I-15 and maybe backed up to I-15 a little bit, maybe not. I don't know. It's driving down, you don't want to see a bunch, as you come into our city, see nothing but apartments as well. So, I mean, there's got to be a mix of what mixed use can be there. I still think the density's high, in my opinion. I know it says it falls in that, but it feels like it's too high. I mean, I don't know, it works, but it looks very high. Because I've seen the D.R. Horton subdivision that has a high input, and it doesn't look like this with the high units in there. It's a different look. I mean, the road's going to take care of most of that. I'd prefer to see everything on the east side of the wash, lower density, than on the west side. Just to have that wash is a barrier. But then we lose commercial that way as well. But we don't know what commercial's going in and what they have planned. So it's hard to make a decision, like you're saying, without having the whole thing. That's where I'm thinking.
Thanks, Pete. Austin, I invite you to come up here if you'd like to. Just to make sure, I think the one question I need to hear is if you guys have a plan for one bedroom or the studios. And there might have been some other questions you might have picked up on you might want to address. If not, that's fine, but I want to give you the opportunity.
No studios, all one beds. If you go back to the site plan, so we took a full-on commercial retail site plan out. We've got the boxes left there. We didn't want to put in too much detail, put in names of people we had. We had people interested, but they said, until stuff goes in, we can't commit, right? And so some sort of big box grocer, some sort of drive-through pads, things like that is what we're planning. We're doing as good as we can, given the current circumstance of nobody's commit until that road's in, until there's stuff happening, right? Those rooftops going across the street, we'll start getting people committing and we can get a solid site plan. With the PUDC, when you bring a site plan, you get that site plan approved. We can't build out boxes and get boxes approved that don't fit potential tenants that haven't committed yet. So that's kind of the issue there. We're actually, the next thing on the agenda, B, is turning this into commercial retail zone. So we are trying to do it cohesively. We are. It just is really hard being back behind so much open space and having nothing yet, right? We cannot get people to commit, and the way retail works, you get those anchors in and it kind of falls into place. Everyone has their own footprints. It's not something you can just kind of go do like a house. A lot of them are custom. So that's why with a PUDC, you can't actually do an exact site plan until you have the right tenants in. But that's what we're planning on trying to do, is get some type of specialty grocer, some mid-box, and some little drive-through pads that'll work there. So that is the plan, and that's what we're shooting for. But that's about as much detail as we can get to this point until we really have the tenants nailed down, which we can't until we have progress. So, and to answer other people's questions with why apartments, I think the city council, when they do a general plan, we've actually gone into areas before where we've suggested lower density, and they've said, no, do higher density, because this is one of our few areas for high density. The cities need this mix. And so it's not just selfish developers coming in saying, we want to make a lot of money and wash our hands and it's your problem. That's not how it works. We bought this piece knowing what the city wanted in the area. The city spends a lot of time when studies, national studies, master plans, different things like that, deciding which areas work for stuff like this. And it's not by chance. There's a lot of really smart people who say, if you want this infrastructure in, if you want a new street light, if you want a road, you got to have this different mix of stuff in there. That's how it gets paid for, right? Public-private partnerships. And so it's not as simple as greedy developer X or the city's not thinking correctly. We're doing our very best to make a project that looks good. Peter, I don't know if you've seen the renderings of the buildings we're doing, and you've seen the unit density per acre, 13 and a half, and you've seen other projects of that same density look good, but this one doesn't. This is high quality stuff. I don't really know where that's coming from. So maybe you could clarify.
I didn't say it didn't look good. I just said I don't feel I feel like there's too much density there. I mean, it's a 3-story building that's next to single-story buildings up there. That's like hey, you guys, please quiet. I just don't feel like that. That's my opinion on it. It stands out over the rest of them. Like, but that's, I'm one of 5 up here.
Yeah,
that's just
okay.
my opinion.
I was just wondering where that thought was.
No, I mean, I think the project looks just fine. I just don't feel that the 3-story buildings coming in with those 1-story homes and 2-story homes down there. I mean, I could be wrong, but
yeah,
that's just how I feel.
Yeah. So, well, we're doing our best to make a project that financially makes sense, to get a road in, to alleviate people's traffic, to make this area better. I understand that people have their opinions, whether true or not. Crime increase, house pricing decrease, not true. Other opinions are true, but we're putting our best foot forward to try to get commercial retail in the area, to try to get a project that's good for the area. We're doing parks. We're leaving those trails open. I mean, some developers come in and block trails off, right? We're leaving that open and putting in a pump track. We're trying to make it a really cool place for the community. So, yeah, I understand there's always pushback, but
I agree wholeheartedly with most of what you're saying right now, to be honest with you. In Point State, a lot of credit for you and your staff coming in and doing this. What I want you to work, for me personally, what I want to be worked to is that it comes to us as a planning commission from staff as a recommendation for approval, right? So they're the experts. Something has been amiss. You would know far greater than I have in those meetings of why we're not getting an approval here at the planning commission from staff.
They want retail, and if that giant field wasn't in front of us, if we were on that corner, we'd do retail all day long.
Yeah.
We've been boots on the ground with the retail agents, talking to the tenants, and we can't commit to a site plan or commit to building any out until there's progress, until there's a road in, until there's all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. And I understand the city's need and their desire. But yeah, our best foot forward to get this area thriving. And honestly, it will help our neighbors get more retail. once that road's in. It will. And so it's the best thing for the area. It really is.
Okay. All right, appreciate it. Anything else you want to add, or anybody have questions for him? Awesome.
So this is Commissioner Anderson. So I mean, a couple things. One, I think the architecture looks fine. I don't have an issue, for an apartment building. Apartment buildings are what they are, and it's the architecture is good for an apartment building. I do still think that it would blend a lot better if the townhomes were in, and I know we have it designated, but again, I come back to they should be in this PUD as part of it. They shouldn't be just in a vague, future townhome. I mean,
So we went back and forth on that a lot, and it was suggested that we wait so that it could be two different things to digest, right? So you can approve one and then you can decide on the other.
Right, and that's what we're saying is we've had people piecemeal, and there's precedent that we've already shut that down multiple times with lots of projects. We want to see the whole plan, both for us so we can make a better informed decision, and also so the public can see what there is. As far as not knowing what you can do as far as retail, I mean, the project right on the other side of the freeway that just got preliminary plat approval today, they spent 6 months with us going over all this stuff and planning out, okay, this is where we want to have retail. We don't know who's going to be there. We don't have tenants, but this is the location we want to have it. And they hashed all that out, and they've got all their retail locations in. They've got all their commercial locations, all their residential, all their hotels, their apartments, their multifamily. I mean, all of it in one big cohesive plan. We met together as a planning commission. We had lots of special meetings. We met together as a city council, and we got to see the entire thing. We all voted on it. The public saw exactly what's going in. And as a result of that, tonight they came in for preliminary plat, and not a single person spoke up against it. Why? Because everyone knew what the plan was. And so they had way more retail than you guys do, way more commercial, way more apartments, residential. I mean, their project is massive compared to this, and it wasn't impossible for them to do. So for you to say that you can't do that, I disagree.
No, we could. They'll change it when they get tenants in. It will change drastically. And so to come in and get a plat approval on something that's going to change didn't make a lot of sense.
Again, this is PUD. You have some flexibility. We're talking about use. We're not talking about every single building design. Now, on the flip side too, I'll also agree with Austin, not you, Austin, the other Austin that spoke earlier, that we do need, housing for people that is not just people moving in from out of state. It is what it is. I mean, everybody that moves in, there are more than just people moving in from out of state. And if those are the only people, there's nowhere to live. I mean, my kids don't have anywhere to live. They can't go and buy, a home that is $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. It doesn't happen. You have to have other places for people to live. I know nobody wants it in their backyard. Doesn't matter which community in Washington City you offered to put this in, everybody would say, don't put it in my backyard. And I get that. But it's also, you have to have a variety of housing. You can't have just all apartments or just townhomes or just, $1 million homes. You got to have a variety. No one likes where it is, but you do have to have it or the city doesn't function. And that's why the city general planned. Now again, this one was changed from commercial to PUD mixed use. Again, we didn't change that. We didn't vote that, but that's what it currently is, which is what we have to base, our decisions on. But all the other apartments in the area, they were general plan for that long before, everybody was here. So that's how the city was planned. That's where it is. So that part, I agree with. My big beef is I want to see the whole plan. I want to see what you're going to do. What's the plan? And so everybody can make good informed decisions.
Gotcha.
Austin, do you have any questions for us before we kind of wrap this up?
No, not anymore.
Okay.
So thank you.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it. So I just wanted, this comment's just kind of eating at me a little bit. I always joke from being from California, and that's fine. Everyone hate me. That's totally fine. We moved out here because my mom had breast cancer. So we moved out here to have support her. And when you think about all the people that move here for whatever reason they are, we do need apartments, and we do need this, and we do need that. Now, for a second, those of you, let's have a difference of opinion. I don't want people shouting and disagreeing with what I'm going to say, because what I might say, or what I say, is probably not going to be popular with some of you. Where those apartments are that we've put out there in Sienna Hills are exactly where I think they need to be. I was at the planning process from the beginning, and now I'm seeing them being lived in. I'm seeing the problems that come with them. I'm seeing the benefit that comes from them. And I look back and I go, I'd do that again, exactly the same place. Now, that might be a difference of opinion. And that's totally fine. That's what's going to happen. There's no possible way as a recommending body, we're going to recommend everything to council and they will approve things that's going to make everybody happy. There's plenty of things about my own home where I'm at that I'm not happy with. There's just a point to, I understand all of your points. I get it. There's a lot of passion in there, but at the same time, when we're trying to take the entire city into consideration for what we are recommending to city council, it's far greater than this meeting tonight. It's far greater than 6 months planning. It's far greater than 10 years planning. It's been noted. So I just want to say that everybody moves here for a reason, and we've got to, well, we don't have to do anything, but the reason I got involved personally is I wanted to make sure that I had a hand in planning so I didn't watch Washington City turn into what I came from. And that is why I got involved. So if you don't like what you see happen, there are definitely ways to get involved. Absolutely. There's definitely ways to become more informed about what's happening in your communities. There's definitely ways that you could answer some of the questions you had tonight prior to this meeting that would just make you a more informed person. 1,000 points right here to your comment. Like I said, that's homework that's been done that in my 4 years, nobody's brought that to the table, but we all know it's factual. So I appreciate that. What happens now is, as a recommending body, we're going to have a discussion and we're going to decide whether or not we want to, we have a couple choices. We can submit this to city council for a recommendation for their, for approval, that we've vetted this. We've got all the public comment on record. It goes to city council with our approval that we think you should approve this project. We could recommend this project to city council for denial. They still have the option to take that denial, go to city council, make their argument to them, where city council is going to vote one way or the other whether or not they want this or change it or whatever's going to happen at that point. In my 4 years, I can count the number of times on my hand I've been to a city council meeting, minus 4 fingers. I think I've been to 1. There's definitely, in my mind, I don't pay all that much attention to what happens in city council. I do the best I can to send it to them and then they handle it. Looking back in the 4 years of the growth that I've seen in this city, 10 out of 10, totally happy with them. Yeah, there's some stuff where I'm like, yeah, why did that happen? And I'll ask Dad, call him up, what happened? Why is their apartment hellhole? That's crazy. It seems huge. Now that I look at it, 100% right there. So those 2 options, or another option, which we at times find projects and we table them. This project was tabled from a few meetings ago where we asked them to go and work on some things, and they did, and they brought it back to us. Those are the 3 options that we have from time to time. And I think it's nice that we'll ask the developer what they want. Once they know what our thoughts are, we'll give them a hand and say, what do you want? You want to go to city council with the denial? You want to go to city council with an approval? You want to go to city council with a table? I'm sorry. Do you want to table it? It doesn't go to city council. How many times can you table a project just so I'll know? 2? Or there's not a number, right?
There's no law that says this is your limit on tables. Generally, we look at it as the reason why we're tabling it, and if you are going to table it, that you do it to a date certain.
Yeah.
With this one having been tabled once already, with a meeting missed because of the holidays, I mean, it feels like the tabling happened. You know, that it's time for the commission to send a recommendation one way or the other to the council and let the applicant go to that level.
Okay. I had a thought and lost it. I cannot, as the chair, I cannot make a recommendation, or I cannot make a motion. So I'm going to ask for a discussion from the commissioners, and one of them is going to have to make a motion on what we think we should do as a planning commission. What I would like to see from my discussion point, to open that up for kind of my final thoughts, I would like to see the project come to us with the recommendation for approval from staff. I put staff's recommendation 10 miles ahead of anything I could say or do about a project, because they're the ones planning it and in the meetings and working on this. I would also, I think I'll leave it at that. My other comments are, clearly on the record for council, and I know there's council members here listening. That's where I'm at. I know we need apartments. I have no problem with the project. I understand why we need them. To be honest, in my opinion, again, this might be different than others. I think it's a perfect spot for apartments. I would rather put them there than I would rather put them in a neighborhood anywhere else. My wife and I drove through Sienna Hills the other day, and I said, what do you think of this whole development? You know, in the last 5 years, there's been quite a bit of development there. And it was interesting hearing her point of view just from driving through. Now, it's very different from people that live there that see it every day, so I understand that. From an aesthetic point of view and from what it looks like from a layman's eyes that doesn't live there, I think the city's doing a great job. I don't think this hurts that. So I'd like to see it come back to us with an approval, with a recommendation from the city for an approval. Whatever that takes, they can hammer that out, and it's not up to us to do that. That's where I'm at as far as my discussion point and where we're at to get to a motion. So one of you all are going to have to make a motion at some point or discuss it.
This is
That's
Commissioner
right.
Anderson. I'll make a motion that we recommend denial of Z-21-22, request to rezone approximately 36.96 acres located at Grapevine Crossing and North Plata Circle from the current open space zoning to the proposed planned unit development residential. The reason for recommending denial is that we need to see the PUD residential for the apartments and the townhomes and the commercial all in one plan so we can make a better decision.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Anderson. I have a second by Commissioner Bullock. Individual voting, Tupou.
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. I'm Hanson. This motion has failed. We will send this to City Council with our recommendation for.
Chairman, the motion passed, but it
All right,
was to
correct.
recommend denial.
Yeah. The motion passes. We will send this to City Council with our recommendation for denial, along with all of the notes. This meeting is a public display for them. They're in the audience. They understand how this went. They can discuss at the time. So the public knows at City Council, is there opportunity for discussion from the public?
That's subject to the mayor and the council's preference. The city council meeting that will address this issue will not be a public hearing because it's not required that they hold a second public hearing.
Okay.
In the years when I was on council, all we had was just the minutes, but now they're provided the YouTube link in their packet so they can go watch this whole meeting, which is why we really appreciate that folks speak up and do it in a way, because this is all something that is just directly captured and available for the next land use body to look at and listen to. But it would be up to the mayor and the council if they ask for any more public comment at that time.
Okay, it's my understanding as well that people that live within, is it 300, I want to say feet, but that doesn't sound right all of a sudden. Who is it that gets notified of this when it goes to City Council so we can avoid or at least not have to deal with this type of a thing? Let me rephrase. This is something that somebody printed and passed around within at least a mile. Somebody that lived a mile away gave this to us. Talks about come to the planning commission meeting with your pitchforks or whatever it says on here. There's a requirement in the state of Utah of who we have to notify about a project before it comes to us, and it is how far?
So there's a radius in our ordinance. Our ordinance goes farther than state requirement. The state just says you've got to go a certain radius. What we learned, and I think this was an ordinance that was passed back when I was on council, is in a developing city that has raw land, sometimes that radius does not capture very many people. And so we passed the ordinance says radius, or however big it has to get until you get a certain number of different addresses. And so our planning and zoning office requires that the applicant comply to get at least the minimum number of addresses that we require in our ordinance. This is one of those areas where the radius would not capture enough. And so the radius is larger here than it has been in a more congested area.
You might have to do a little digging to get notified when this comes to City Council, I guess is my point, depending if you live outside of that radius. So I encourage you all to do that. Austin, thank you for coming. I look forward to seeing you back at some point, hopefully, or, good luck at council with what you have. Thanks for your time tonight. At this time, I'm going to call a recess for 10 minutes or so. We've been here for quite a bit. There are some other items on the agenda, but I feel like some people might need a break. So I'm going to call a 10-minute recess.
Now you see why I want to come in at 9 today? I told you to eat some food. Are you warm enough? You okay in here? What you got on a sweater? Are you warm enough?
We're going to go ahead and get started in about 2 minutes.
Start this thing up, let's go.
Yeah.
So just so you know, on this last one, I ran 300. I will make that for next time. I'll be right back.
Do I have time to pee? So do I have time to pee? Are we starting? Okay.
So, all because of coming to planning.
That was my nickname in high school basketball too.
Clunk?
Yeah, I had something to do with the free throws.
I'll stay up here just so it makes everybody feel.
You guys are all the company. Come on. You didn't even have to talk.
Tell them a joke. You want to laugh at that?
I don't know a joke.
That's why we have laugh attacks.
Might not appropriate for council, yes.
Does it have anything to do with rain? Okay, Eldon, you can't answer. You already know it. What type of book likes rain? Yes. What type of boat likes rain? Wait, I mean water. Yeah, wait, let me do the other one.
I'm like, wow.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and start in 1 more minute.
I've already fixed it, everyone. It's not even lieutenant's office room, that's what happened. Officer Clunk. Clunk.
I'd like to go ahead and start, but I think that we're waiting on the developer at this point, so we'll give him a couple, or give him a little bit. And Commissioner Anderson. All right, Austin, you guys are ready? All right. I'm going to call the meeting back to order. We're going to go ahead and start on our agenda item number, I believe we're on 7A.
Yeah, we need sugar.
Nope, 6B. 5B, here we go. Yeah, that 6 threw me off. 5B. Melody, you're back at the computer as well?
Yes, I am.
All right, this is a continuation as well of a public hearing for consideration recommendation to the city council for a zone change request Z-22-22 from open space to planned unit development, commercial PUD C, located approximately Grapevine Crossing, North Plata Circle. Applicant is Elevate Development. This is next to the project we just heard. And I'll turn the time over to Eldon for staff report.
Thank you, Commissioners. As stated, this item was tabled on October 19th, 2022 in conjunction with the previous item. The requested change is from the current zoning of open space to a proposed plan unit development commercial zoning designation. The PUDC request is for the purpose of developing the acreage into a future commercial development, with the applicant fully understanding that they will have to bring the specific design and use plan back before the city when they are ready to build out the project. Again, this request is only for the zoning approval of the PUDC with no submitted project plan. This particular location was recently approved for a new general plan land use designation of planned unit development, which allows for the PUDR and or the PUDC zoning districts. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is open space to the north, PCD to the east, west, and south. Staff has no concerns with the proposed zone change as outlined. The application is in harmony with the surrounding land use and general plan. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of Z-22-22 for the zone change request from open space to the proposed planned unit development commercial on to the City Council based on the following findings as seen in your report. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thanks, Eldon. I need to ask for a piece of clarification on this particular one, Thad. Do we need to have a public hearing on this as well?
Well, you continued it till today. You should at least open it.
Okay.
And see if there's any other public comment.
I'm going to open the public hearing at this time. If there's anybody that'd like to speak to this item, please come forward and state your name for the record. I'm going to close the public hearing at this time and open the floor up for staff. I'm sorry, open the floor for commissioners for any questions or comments.
I think we need to go with what we did on the last, so we can see it all. I mean, that's my feeling towards this. I mean, we just sent a recognition of denial for parcel B. You can't very well approve C if we don't know. We'd be contradicting ourselves if we.
Yeah, I say we just do the same thing. We just recommend denial, that they all get put in together as one mixed-use PUD.
Austin, is there any reason you'd want something different than that?
I mean, you guys want the retail, so yes, I'd like to have approval, but I get that you want it all to be seen.
Yeah.
But I'll stand up.
Yeah,
we just want a mixed use.
You could request it all to be seen for approval of the residential because that's the more controversial piece. I get that, but to zone this for commercial retail, I think is in line with what everybody wants. So, I don't know why you would hold back that zone change, to be honest.
We just want it all one mixed use. That's why.
Does parcel C go up on top of
Parcel C is not it's parcel A. Parcel A is the one that's up against I-15. Parcel C is going to be regular residential up on the plateau.
Oh, I thought,
Is there
this was,
anything
I thought
on-
this was parcel C. We were.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
parcel A. It's everything to
I misunderstood
the
that.
west of the. If you go back to the old site plan, yeah, there you go. That one on the left, Eldon. Yep.
Is there a
That one
plan
there.
for the
See that pink?
piece north of the freeway?
B1 is the apartments, right? And B2 is the townhomes. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we've got a big box and a bunch of pads, and yeah, it's not super fine tuned. It's not pretty because we didn't have it exact, but that is the goal, right? To get some mid box and pads in there with a big box anchor, or maybe not a big box, but some sort of mid level grocer that will. The big boxes are all probably going to be on Belliston's corner, but we'll see if we can.
Who's Belliston?
He's the one who owns all that open space in front of us.
Is there any plan for the piece that's north of the freeway? Are you going to do something with that, or is it not buildable?
It's not. It's too close to the Turtle Reserve. You can't access it. So we've actually talked to the city about using it for some sort of a power. Can't think of the word. transformer area or something like that. But we haven't found a use for it yet. So as for now, no, it's just surrounded by turtle reserve. So
Okay.
And there's a lot of elevation and kind of slope issues.
yeah,
right?
it's really not usable unless it were some sort of.
I don't even think
benefit
there's
to the
room for a
city.
billboard there. Actually, there's a
Like a
it's kind of a
ravine or
cliff
cut.
face and so there's like the freeway sees mountainside, but
Yeah,
it's-
unless we
yeah,
got
it's like
real creative,
a rock
we got,
wall would be a good fit there.
It's probably gonna be nothing. Yeah, it'll just be a little extra piece of
All right.
recreational for everyone. So
Okay. Thad, do you have any counsel for us with regards to where we're at right now within rejecting the previous or?
So the request is to be given a PUD zone, but without any of the plan being reviewed or approved. And almost every time that you do PUD zoning, it's because you've seen what they're proposing and you do it. Approving, you can approve just PUD zoning as it is. That essentially vests them until the landowner asks to change it to always be PUD zoning. And so my only comment would be usually we give that vesting because we've seen what they're proposing together with it. And in this case, you're doing it without seeing anything. So it locks it, and again, you don't make the approval, you just recommend it, but it locks that parcel in at that zone without the city knowing anything. And so that's the only issue here that is different from what usually happens on PUD zone requests.
All right.
Yeah, the way these have both been kind of presented is as if they were straight zoning, sort of like, hey, this is the zoning we want. But PUD, the whole point is to bring the whole plan. That's the difference in a PUD versus straight zoning.
yeah,
So
I agree with you and Pete. So yeah.
thank you.
But I think it's really tough for him on how to design it. I mean, today you don't have your large box or mid box. You're not doing anything. Yeah.
Well, if I can speak to that for a second, the reason we did bring them together is city staff wants these to be tied together, right? And we're trying to accommodate that without saying here's exactly what it's going to be, because we don't technically know yet, but we'll go with the zones together, right? And so we are saying this will be commercial retail, and we want it to be commercial retail. And we're on the phone with or our agents are on the phone with tenants. We're trying. But yeah, what that looks like exactly yet. But we want it to be approved simultaneously that yes, this is what it will be. Not we're going to come back later with something different. So that's really why. It was more of a trying to appease what staff wanted without getting too far ahead of our skis. So
again, if you look back at old minutes or packets or whatever, I mean, like what Green Springs did, I mean, that's a good example of it's a big, huge thing, lots of different phases. Commercial, retail, hotels, apartments, resort condo, and they had all sorts of stuff.
So we could
And they
absolutely
planned it all. And
well,
that,
I mean,
that
the
is
first
what a
thing I ever
PUD
sent to
is.
the city had the most amazing retail you'd ever seen, right? But we know that that's like if we bring that and say this is what it's going to be, and it ends up not being.
Well, I mean, they didn't tell
that.
us what businesses are coming or exactly how it was going, but I mean, we had a really nice cohesive
So
plan.
it's
Hey, this is
better
how
to
it is.
just make a guess and say this is what we intend for it to be than to leave it this vague. Is what you're saying? Okay.
Well, it depends on how much detail you can get, right? But,
Yeah.
But usually the type of details that the council wants to see is, we're going to use this type of architecture, right? So you would show them some styling. You would show them some images of side and back and front reliefs so that they get, and this is what the council usually wants, they get a feel for what you're going to build, not necessarily what size the building is, when and where, as it is. This is the style and the look and feel of a community, of a planned community that we're asking you to approve.
Yeah. The very first thing I ever sent over to Drew when we very first got this property had like the most amazing everything, and then I was told to dial it back because I don't want to get too far ahead of my skis and promise the world and underdeliver. So.
But no, I mean, the things that, with a PD, what we usually ask for is, what's the general type of grading for the whole area? What's the general type of stormwater? How are you going to get utilities for all of it, at least in general? What type of architecture style? What type of lighting style? What type of fencing? what
Gotcha.
type-
That makes sense.
That's what everybody, and so every single PUD that typically gets approved, it's a whole package, and you see, okay, this is how it is. there's still flexibility in there. Okay, well, we need, I mean, even tonight, they adjusted their boundary lines and their streets and this and that, but it was still within the framework of what they had submitted.
Gotcha.
That's
Okay.
that's what a PUD is supposed to look like.
Perfect.
Thanks,
We'll work
Austin.
on that. Thank you.
I'll default to you guys. I'm on the same page.
I do have one question, because the staff did have a comment here. It just says, if the project intends on using a PID, the development agreement will be required. Are you guys planning on doing a PID or no? 'Cause it looks like that question wasn't answered for them.
Yeah, we're planning on doing a PID on the commercial section.
Okay, so then that would just have to be hashed out, the developer agreement.
Yeah, and we had asked that this all come through on a development agreement. We thought that a mixed-use PUD project would fit nicely under a development agreement. The applicants did not want to do that. PID will require a development agreement, so they won't have the alternative to avoid a development agreement. The state PID law requires that there be a development agreement with the city, and so that'll force it if that's where you want to go. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I tried to get a development agreement as kind of the way to bring this through the system, to kind of tie things together that weren't perfectly tieable because of the nature of where they are. And maybe that'll be its story at some point. I don't know.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we're here to work through it. So trying to do our best to put our best foot forward. So thanks for your feedback.
Thank you. I'm looking, I don't know if there's more comments, but I'm looking for a motion on this item.
If I can find it. This is Commissioner Anderson. I guess I can make the other one. I'll make a motion to recommend denial of Z-22-22, request to rezone 27.61 acres at approximately Grapevine Crossing and North Plata Circle from the current open space zoning to a proposed unit development commercial zoning designation. The reason stated that we want to see a mixed use planned unit development proposal that includes the apartments, the townhomes, and the commercial. So that would be what lots? A, B, 1, and B2, right? I believe. Did I get that right? Parcel A, parcel B1, and parcel B2. And what is parcel C? Do you guys even own parcel C?
Yeah, so it's up.
So I guess that's the question.
It's
is
up
what
on
is
the
that?
plateau. It's an extension of kind of what the Coal West is doing. We'll have some residential up there. It'll be about 30, 40 lots. They're really cool lots. So if you want to reserve one, I'm just kidding. So, really cool views up there.
That one's not subject to any application tonight, so I just suggest you not mention parcel C to anything you're doing here.
Yeah, I think that's okay to keep it separate where it's totally up on top of the hill and different. That's fine, but I wouldn't show it on the plan then when you do your thing.
Well, sorry, I'll keep setting it up. So it was in the initial zone change. That was actually commercial retail zoned initially up there. So when we switched over to PUD, it did include that. So it does need a rezone because everyone knows up on that plateau you're not going to do commercial retail. But anyway, so that's why it's in there. We could do it
Paragliding, yeah.
It's Commissioner Bullock. I'll second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Anderson. I have a second by Commissioner Bullock. Individual voting, Commissioner Tupou,
Aye.
Commissioner Bullock,
Aye.
Commissioner Shield,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. The motion passes. We'll send that to City Council with approval recommendation for denial. And that wraps up those two particular items. We'll move to item number 7A. This is a public hearing and consideration to approve a conditional use permit for a proposed hotel, retail, and restaurant commercial site, C-22-12, located approximately 70 North Green Spring Drive. The applicant is Rosenberg and Associates and RR Development. Turn the time over to staff for the report.
Thank you, commissioners. The applicant is proposing a hotel with 123 rooms, 3 small restaurants, and 10 other retail spaces within the development. The hotel did receive a height waiver by the city council. Zoning regulations require hotels to obtain an approved conditional use permit. The parcel is zoned service commercial. The area is designated in the general plan as regional commercial. Staff has reviewed the proposal and finds that it meets the standards as outlined in the general plan and zoning ordinance. The building elevations are aesthetically pleasing and appears that this development will be a welcomed addition to the city. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve C-22-12, allowing for a hotel and commercial development to be located at 70 North Green Springs Drive, based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions in your report. And I am happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thanks, Eldon. Commissioners, I'll open the floor. Correct. I'll open this for the public hearing. If anybody would like to speak to this item, please come forward, state your name. I'll close the public hearing at this time and ask commissioners if there's any comments or questions for staff or the developer on this item. The only thing I want to clarify is this is right off the roundabout, right? This is the first on the left, correct?
It's right in front of the existing hotel.
Yeah.
Right behind the new map being built.
My bad. Glad nobody was here for that. All right, scratch everything I said all night.
Eldon's got the aerial there. Eldon, this isn't this project, but the parcel to the right there, to the east, is that also a hotel parcel? Does it exist already? Okay, it's not been built yet. Okay, good. I'm glad I didn't miss that detail.
We saw that earlier. Yeah, was that one? Yeah. I knew that, actually. Commissioners, I will look for a motion.
This is just for the hotel, not the retail down below, right? Or is it for the retail as well?
It's for all of it. Everything you see on the site plan there is what we're approving.
So the site's got a lot going on there, commissioners. You've got the hotel, and then up against Green Springs, you've got 2 kind of drive-through restaurants. The third restaurant just north of the Maverick, and then some retail strip there. And then kind of that interior parking. So you've kind of got establishments all around the perimeters, and then that.
This Shill, I would move that the Planning Commission approve C-22-12, allowing for a hotel and commercial development to be located at 70 North Green Springs Drive, based on the 4 findings and the 11 conditions.
Commissioner Anderson, I second.
Got a first by Shield, second by Anderson. Individual voting, Tupou.
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
I'm Hanson. I'm an aye as well. The conditional use permit is granted for that item on 6A. 6B is the one I was looking at.
7B.
7B.
Mislabeled.
Moving that 6 tonight really screwed this up. 7B is the one I was looking at earlier. I'll get to my question about the roundabout. This is a public hearing and consideration to approve a conditional use permit for a proposed 6,000 square foot, 3-tenant retail building, C-22-18, located approximately at Lot 2 of Grapevine Crossing, 1600 East Grapevine Crossing. The applicant is Troy Belliston. Turn the time over to Eldon for a report.
Thank you, Commissioners. The applicant is wishing to develop approximately 0.81 acres into a commercial retail plaza at this location, which is labeled as Retail 2 on the plan we're looking at. The site is proposed to be roughly 6,000 square feet divided into 3 spaces to be used as restaurant or typical retail business. The site labeled as Retail 1 will come back before the Planning Commission for a conditional use permit approval if the building is over 5,000 square feet. The conditional use is being sought for Retail 2 due to the requirements found in the commercial zoning regulations stating that any commercial use development that is over 5,000 square feet in size must obtain a conditional use permit approval from the Planning Commission. Staff has reviewed the proposed project and finds that it meets the intent of the commercial use regulations as found in the zoning ordinance. The proposed project is also very well designed and has more than sufficient parking. The project will be an asset to the city. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve C-22-18, allowing for the commercial development to be located at approximately 1600 East Grapevine Crossing North, as shown in the attached exhibits, with the findings and conditions as outlined below. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
All right, Commissioners, floor is open for any questions or comments. This is the one that's right by the roundabout, right? So, inside of it, yeah. Do you guys find it interesting at all that nobody stuck around for this?
We call that a traffic circle now.
Yeah. Those things that apparently we're the only country that doesn't know how to use those, which I agree with. I mean, it seems like they work everywhere else but the United States.
I'm proud of that roundabout. Like you could actually go on a hike in the middle of there. There's a lot going on. There's elevation change. There's water flow.
We should uproot that when the light comes in and put it in your backyard so you can have that as a memento.
It has been run over. It has been had a lot of insurance repairs made to it, though.
In Carlsbad, they built one, and the first weekend, somebody took out all the art in the middle. A car went right. Yeah, it was terrible. What questions do you have for staff, Commissioners?
Which lot is it on the overhead? That one? Okay.
I have, Commissioner Tupou, I have a question on the retail building 2. Which one is going to have the drive-through? Which building?
If you can
The
see
one
my
right at the exit?
cursor bouncing there.
Is it both?
Do you want me to answer that?
Please state your name.
Yeah, this is Troy Belliston. So, of the 2 buildings here, they're both in design with the architects right now. The one on the left doesn't require a CUP because it's less than 5,000 feet. The one on the right does. To your question, Commissioner, the furthest north is the one that has it, and that gives us the most stacking distance for cars.
Okay.
The other one has a double drive, so each tenant would have a drive on that one. It was just challenging to get a double drive on both of them and not have it look funny, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for staff or the developer? If not, I'll look for a motion. This is also a conditional use permit that will be granted or denied here. This does not go to city council. Oh, did I open the public hearing? Open this up to a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak to this item? I'll close the public hearing at this time and look for either additional comments or a motion.
Commissioner Anderson, I'll make a motion to approve C-22-18, request for a conditional use permit for commercial development along Grapevine Crossing Loop, over 5,000 square feet in area, located approximately 1600 East Grapevine Crossing North, with the 4 findings and 9 conditions as outlined by staff.
It's Commissioner Bullock, I'll second.
We got a first by Anderson, a second by Bullock. Individual voting, Tupou,
Aye.
Bullock,
Aye.
Shield,
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye. Aye.
I'm Hanson, I'm an aye as well. The conditional use permit is granted to Mr. Belliston. Good luck.
Are you gonna need any rooftops to fill these buildings?
Get that road done.
You know, the challenge, the challenge is the tenants or the businesses go put a Google pin and everything to the north is the recreation area. So it's we're the center of the bottle or the center of the hourglass, right? 95% of all the traffic in the county goes past this site. So it's a challenge has been more of getting in front of people in the education process. So anyway, it's coming.
All right, we'll move to item number 8, the 2023 meeting schedule. We're looking for consideration from us as a body to approve the Planning Commission meeting schedule. There was a correction on it, and I think you guys all saw that and got that. So I don't have any issues with any of the dates or anything like that, obviously, but
All good.
all good. All right, I'll look for a motion on that.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I make a motion we approve agenda item 8A, meetings and dates.
Commissioner Tupou, I second that.
Got a first by Bullock, second by Tupou. Individual voting, Tupou.
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
Shield.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
I'm Hanson, I'm an aye as well. You know, I wanted just in closing, make some remarks to the staff. Most of you guys are still here, or some of you. Thoroughly, we do appreciate what you do. I know you definitely don't get enough credit for this, and you make our jobs, I don't want to say easier, but it's at least bearable. That we keep showing up again doing this, and I do appreciate all the hard work. I know you guys don't get enough credit. Eldon, thanks to you for tonight. I don't know if it really was, but it seemed like a big move to come over there to that, from that chair to this chair. I appreciate you doing that, and I think that's it. Is there anything else that you guys would like to say or do or talk about before we adjourn the meeting? Good. And my personal bodyguard, thank you for coming up to the front of the room. I'm not saying you always need to sit there, but I felt like it was appropriate tonight. Yeah. Yeah. You can't look at your phone. I don't know what you're, maybe you were, I don't know. But yeah, we're glad you're here though, definitely. You probably learned more tonight than any of the other meetings. I'll look for a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening.
Commissioner Tupou, I make a motion to adjourn.
Shield, I second.
I've got a first and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. Dick and Lori, thank you again for coming. You guys, thank you.
Recording stopped.